Hi, everyone. Welcome to Thanks for Sharing. I am your host, Jackie Pack, and I have on this episode with me today a few guests. I have Dion Harris, who has been on the podcast before, and I'm glad to have him back. Welcome, Dion. Tell us a little bit about
Thank
you.
you. All right. My name is, like Jackie said, Dion Harris. I would guess you would say a healthcare administrator. I deal with quality and performance improvement, hospitals, worked in a number of different states. Originally from Washington, D.C., a military brat. My dad was in the military for 30 plus years, and I now reside right outside of Houston, Texas.
Nice. Thanks. Glad to have
Mhm.
you back. And then I also have on with me Marvella or Vella Ying. So tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marvella Ying. I'm a Midwest girl who went to college in Southern Georgia. I am a wife, a mom of two girls, and I am a full spectrum doula who used to be a stockbroker. Yeah, so
Oh,
that's a crazy
interesting.
life. Yeah, so it's a big change. But I come from a very tight-knit, extended family. So grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, we're a very close-knit family. I love telling people both of my parents, they're both mixed and they were born in the 60s. So their experience has really shaped who I am as a person and how my family is. So that's a big deal. I'm not a military brat, but we have a very military strong family. And yeah, my big passion is maternal health, infant health, and making sure that moms get home to their babies and have beautiful experiences. That's my biggest passion. But yeah, I'm here today.
Thank you so much. In today's episode, we're going to be talking around a theme of living in a fractured world and how we stay connected to each other, especially across gender and political divides. Right now, the world we're living in, or the country we are living in, things feel heavy, both internationally and then here at home. And so we're going to be talking today about what's happening, how that feels, how it impacts us, and most of all, how we can stay human with each other amidst all of this. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, I don't want to talk about politics, I will just give this disclaimer. You don't have to agree with anything that's said today. We're just going to share what's real for us. And I will put the episode up and you can comment and we can start a respectful conversation if you want to share your thoughts there. To start with, what's one headline or story lately that has been really present in your mind?
Bella, you can go first. Ladies first.
Okay. Man, there's so many. Gosh, I can't honestly name you one. If I named you one, I would be doing a disservice. I can just say overall, I feel like every time I look at the news, I'm in the movie Idiocracy. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's something so flabbergastingly so far out there that I just don't know what's happening. So that I guess I could say that. It almost feels like I'm in the twilight zone because some things just don't seem real. I guess I would say the biggest one is Denmark becoming a state. And people think like, oh yeah, that sounds crazy. It's actually not that reason. I'm going to be totally honest. I think it's ridiculous for me, my opinion. We're talking about Denmark becoming a part of the United States, another state, but we have Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. already that pay taxes and are part of quote unquote the United States, and we won't make them states, but we're going to make this new country a state of ours. So honestly, it wasn't even the fact of thinking about it. It was the fact that we're going to bypass people who've already wanted to become states and have states' rights to do something else. So that actually boggled my mind more than anything, if I'm being transparent.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What would you, if you were to describe the overall emotional tone of what you're feeling with all of the different news stories, what would you say?
Tired,
Yeah,
exhausted, emotionally and mentally spent.
yeah,
That's what I have. And then there's some frustration. I'll be totally honest, because it was so many. people that before everything happened said it wouldn't be this bad, that people were exaggerating on how bad it could be. And we're on year 2 and it got real bad real fast.
Yeah, we're at the beginning of year 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So in 1 year, like all the drama and people that were exaggerating, it is literally enrolling in motion. So for me, those are the biggest feelings, like a slap in the face, like even the apologies. And I know people are like, well, people have to learn. And it's like, some things you should have to learn. And I get it. The kid with the hot stove, like, oh, it's hot, don't touch it. But there are other things that we can just look like, oh, that's bad. I shouldn't do that. That guy just jumped off of a bridge and that just doesn't look safe. I don't need to do it myself to find out it's not safe. So I guess
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah, as a whole, exhausted, and I just exhausted from all sides.
Yeah. Dion, is there one story or headline that stays present in your mind, or what's the overall tone or emotion that you feel?
Obviously, and let me make note, Bella, you were talking about Greenland.
Yes.
Yes, Greenland. Obviously, the Greenland thing, but I think the big one for me is more domestic. The shooting in Minneapolis, killing of a young mother. I think anytime you get in situations where, in my opinion, humble opinion, the overuse of power is being used, I just think it's a tragedy. That's a big one. And like Bella was saying, we can go through it. We can talk about Venezuela, Greenland, Federal Reserve,
Pulling SNAP benefits.
recently cutting, I forgot how many billion from behavior and mental
Oh, yeah.
health. That
Oh, the
just
child
happened.
care subsidies. The
Yeah,
child care
yeah.
subsidies.
So there's so much, but I think the thing that just popped out was how divided the country is, how 50% of us, or half of us, or close to half at least, can look at a video or look at a situation and have wildly different takes on that. And you have to say a lot of that's political. And so I always try to take a little further back, look at it, and make sure that I'm not feeling certain ways because I don't like the current administration, which I don't. I don't make any he's a haws about it or fake it. I'm an honest person. I try to look at it, but like I said, my family, like Villa's military family, and even people I know who are military veterans, they had rules of engagement. I hear certain things like, well, if you just wouldn't agitate, and I've never believed in, no matter who's in office, agitating means that you should possibly die.
Can I
Yeah,
make a point
definitely.
just
Yeah.
I'm
to back
sorry.
you up? We don't let kids do that in school. So the kids can't do that. It doesn't matter what someone says to you. They tell you you have to walk away and go find somebody. And so when you say that, all I hear is we're asking children to be more emotionally mature and de-escalate situations more than we ask adults. Full
Like these law
frontal
enforcement who have
lobe.
guns.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And
It was
so
surprising how quickly some of the discourse on it went to, well, she should have obeyed. And I'm like, in a country where we proclaim our freedom and we say that is so important to us, you should obey or you should die. That's crazy.
you're exactly right. I just think more than this headline or this headline, it's just the incredible divide and how we look at things. There was a time for me, it seems like yesterday. I think the older I get, but people tell me I'm old all the times now, call me Unc and stuff like that. It's getting weird. Um,
Auntie, baby. Yes.
yeah. But 2000, early 2000s, 9/11 and stuff like that, we didn't get along, but we agreed on certain things. You would see certain things and you could say, hey, this just isn't right. And I think that time is gone. And I don't know if that time is going to come back anytime soon. Even once this administration is gone, even once we start taking names off the Kennedy Center, even when all those things start happening, I still think that divide is going to be there. And I just see it widening. And that worries me as a parent. like everybody else on here, what that world's going to look like.
I think one of the stories that we often overlook is the overtaking of mainstream media with
Oh,
these mergers and acquisitions that have been happening. Most of our
one voice.
mainstream media is owned by very few families and individuals who will go along, will put out the news that this administration is comfortable with. And we cannot come together as citizens if what we are watching on the news isn't even accurate or we're not watching the same news. There's been several
I,
times last year where a story breaks, something happens, and my husband would say to me, this has got to break through, right? This has to break through. This is so abnormal. This is going to break through. And I would just look at him and say, we don't even watch the same news. They're not even going to hear this story. Or if they do, it's not going to be what I just heard. And he would be like, we're fucked. And I'm like, yeah, you're watching the quote unquote news and it's not accurate.
Billy, you're about to say something. So do you want to
oh,
go for it? Okay.
I was just gonna say when we were all little, I always think about Dan Rather. You got your facts. You got the facts. I'm not going to tell you anything else than the facts. And then we had to use our brains to figure out, was this good or bad for the country? We had to figure out. So it's very different because there's so much saturation of opinions because of social media, because of the internet. It's a gift and a curse. And what I was going to say, because I will proclaim and I will die on this hill. The 24-hour news cycle is one of the worst things to happen in the United States because it is flooded, because it has to be filled, and it's flooded with opinions versus facts. I don't want your opinion. And then you're wondering why people have anxiety and depression and they're mad at each other because you're making stuff up and then you're giving me your opinion on an imaginary problem. And I'm like, whoa, people. So I have a limit in news in my house. Like I can't, it's bad for your brain. It's bad for your digestive system, your emotional state, because it is, like you said, it's owned by a few people and they're going to rain that negativity. And they are very happy with pushing the divide, as Dion said.
Yeah.
What I was going to say. I wish when they removed, I forgot what Dion will probably know, but it was a statute with the news where it could
Fair
only.
Reporting
Oh,
Act.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
when they removed that, it was the worst thing because now
Yes.
you don't have any journalistic integrity, a free for all of running your mouth. It's not news, it's a freaking talk show.
Your time is.
Yeah, no, I agree. You took all my steam, Villa, because that's what I was going to bring up. I shouldn't have let you in. I should have just been
Should
the man that I
have
am and
just
said,
blocked her out.
just wait, just wait. I'm talking. But exactly, I was going to bring the Fair Reporting Act. You said when you were a kid, and I was like, if you were born in the 70s or 80s or 60s, 50s or whatever, we had the Fair Reporting Act. And I want to say it was either Reagan late in his administration or early in the Bush administration
I think it
went
was early
ahead
Bush.
I
and
do.
knocked it out toward the late 80s. And this is the result. This is what happened. And so basically that reporting act was basically you couldn't just project opinions. You had to say what the facts were, good and bad. And a lot of the news channels back then had to show pros and cons.
And it was the
Even if it was
best.
totally against how you feel about something, even if you were totally on the left and you think that this is the greatest thing that happened since sliced bread, it still would show, hey, these are the trends for this. This is what happens in the past, and you would get a complete picture. Because
Yes.
I'm Democrat and we do a lot wrong too.
Yeah.
I'd rather have news that
Yes.
actually shows truth. And then when we start letting people like news stations like Breitbart and
Oh
things
God.
of that nature come in with, I'm going to butcher the word, especially early in the morning, unsubstantiated
Oh, you
stories.
got it.
Yeah, I know I had it. But when you do that, that news floats out
Yeah.
and it catches people's narratives and they pull it in and they use that. I mean, I'm still watching feeds on Facebook and they're still calling our former Michelle Obama Big Mike.
Yeah.
Oh God. That horrible
Yeah.
thing.
and things of that nature. When you have stuff like that out there, it only pollutes the water more.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're at the point where we're at currently, where we can't get right news, where you can show a person, hey, this car was not going to kill this person. We can show it at every angle, but you can show something at every angle, and because of what you believe, you know, faith is always going to be stronger than science. That could be a good thing. I think faith saves lives, but it also can be a negative thing. And
Yeah.
so what you believe and how you feel about something is going to color what your truth is. And we've allowed that where before it wasn't, before we went away from that Fair Reporting Act.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and remember,
remember being young and watching the news. Particularly, I have memories watching election news. And I would say to my mom, if we're watching with Dan Rather or Tom Brokaw or Walter Cronkite, it didn't matter which station you watched, they were largely covering the same things in a similar way, right?
yes.
But I remember asking her, who do you think they voted for? And she'd say, well, they don't tell us that. That's not their job to tell us that. And so we don't know. And I was just like, oh, okay. I remember as a kid wanting to know because, like, I voted in my school class. I wanted to see who they vote for, right? But looking back on that, I'm like, wow, how privileged that was to have news people who were just covering news and covering elections without giving their bias or giving their perspective of this is who I vote for, this is who I hope won. You didn't know that.
Yep.
And you should know it.
You
Go ahead, Villa.
shouldn't.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's crazy because you're talking about election news. They don't even want to have the fact checker run during debates anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so you don't want anyone, like I said, it's a couple hills I'm gonna die on. They want us to be stupid. Because if you're saying words, and now we don't have the Fair Reporting Act, but what is the problem? And I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, Green Party, whoever it is. If you're up there lying and there are facts that show that you're not, people should know that. We have to bring back critical thinking, but everything seems to be like, we're going to make tribalism, we're going to make you into groups, we're going to separate you, which is very smart for people with lots of money, because as long as the poor and
Mm-hmm.
middle class people fight each other, we'll just stay poor and middle class and they'll laugh at us.
And they will
Digress.
make more money.
And they will make more money because we're sitting up here arguing about pennies and they're like, ha ha ha, laughing to the bank. It's infuriating because the one thing I will say, as much as I lean left, I can confidently say there are things that Barack Obama did that I did not like. Did I love that man? Did I think
Mm-hmm.
he was a great president? Absolutely. Did I think that deal he did with Monsanto was trash? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Americans should not be taking in all that crap that Monsanto was putting out. That was
Yep.
trash. He did a horrible job on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I think Donald Trump is one of the no the worst president probably ever? I mean, other than Andrew Jackson, yeah, like yeah, pretty trash, right? But if he caps credit cards at 10%, that'd be great for Americans. There's no reason
Yeah.
for credit cards to be charging us like loan sharks, like they're gonna come break our legs, and you got a 25% APR. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So I say
Well,
that
I mean,
so
he needs to realize he can't do that by executive order
by
only
February,
because
well,
apparently that was news to him that the executive
hey,
order didn't make that change.
no, but remember though, if we're going by the Supreme Court, doesn't matter. They pretty much told him he can do whatever he want. After they
Yes,
did
yeah.
that vote, that there's nothing a president can do whatever, and there is no recourse. Why does he care? If he does it, it makes it push through. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
there's no recourse. But
And
do
I,
I think
and
it's a great idea? Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
and I find
I people have to have perspective, and that's what I wanted to say on this call because people are like, oh my gosh, they're leftists, and that. No, we don't have good sense. We just want other people to have good sense too, because it's like sense and rationality is being lost.
Mm-hmm.
I also really find that their marketing team is amazing because although I find it Machiavellian, they'll start creeping out little stuff like about like education and why we're not pushing more blue collar jobs. And it's now that's starting to split. And I always laugh because majority, and there's always going to be jerks no matter what side you're on. The majority of people I went to college with, the majority of people I know that are in education, always have supported people who did blue collar stuff. You know, HVAC,
Mm-hmm.
plumbers, crane operators. I've never looked down on a farmer. I've never
Right.
looked down on something like that. And now you start
No, it's a
seeing
big
it
thank
creep
you.
up in a whole bunch of yes. And you start creeping up in a lot of different scenarios, a lot of articles, a lot of this. And it just further pushes the divide and it's just marketing and advertising. And I find there's not enough great marketing and advertising to push back on that from other sides. Whoever, there's a lot of structure to what's going on. I don't feel like it's very random how things are being fed to the masses. And that's not from a conspiracy theorist thing or anything like that. I'm just saying how it's going down. It's structure. You look at the marketing, you look at how this goes, even with some of the other things we're talking about, Venezuela. I feel like people are saying now that we're headed to our second Cold War. I think we're already in a Cold War.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you know anything about the Cold War, in the history of our original Cold War, we eat up our side of the hemisphere on Earth. So either you're a friend or we're going to put somebody in a position that's a friend because we don't want nobody being an enemy on our side because they can reach out
A
and touch us a
friend
little bit
or
too
really
soon.
someone we can
That we
dominate.
control. Yeah, a
Yeah,
puppet
they don't have to be
democracy.
a friend. We
Yeah.
don't right
No, no,
now
we just got to
seem
be
like
able you
we care
you got to
about
be with
friends.
us. You got to be with
Hmm.
us. Period. And I think that's happening right now. I for one don't think Venezuela was about being a good guy and getting a dictator out or getting even oil. Now, if you can get a little cherry on the top and be able to refinance that and get all that good oil and stuff of that nature, I hear that it's very hard. That's one thing, but I don't think it had nothing to do with any of that.
No.
Personally, I feel like it was more about making sure that our side is covered.
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
it's both.
I think
Both.
leaving in the vice president of Venezuela, who now knows like she could be next to be taken, kidnapped, and brought to the US and charged. So she's much more likely to go along with what the US asks and says that they need to do. And I just think that Iraqi war, if going into Afghanistan, not that long ago, we also learned that other countries don't necessarily appreciate us coming in and saying, we're here to help you be like us. They know they might have problems in their country, but I think they want to have the say in how that is addressed or resolved or approached, just like we do. We don't want somebody else coming in and saying, we're here to make you like us and just let us be in charge and bring our country to you. That really has never gone well for the United States.
It's
Hey, which
colonialism.
each oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's colonialism. It's the simple fact that it comes from a European ideal that the way I live is the right way, the way you
Mm-hmm.
live is the wrong way, and let me show you how to live the right way. And it doesn't matter if these people have been surviving for millions, and back in the day, millions of years, and they were
Mm-hmm.
fine. Oh no, no, let me make it better for you. It
Mm-hmm.
was like I like how it is over here, right? And
Right.
then negate all the destruction that is brought, the disease that was brought, and that's
Yes.
continued. Like you're bringing upheaval, and you're like, no, 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 it'll be good for them later, but you don't have to deal with later. They
Yeah.
have to deal with later.
Or sometimes the person the United States installs 10 years later, we're like, wow, that wasn't good. They didn't turn out to be who we thought they were.
How many times has that happened?
That's a lot. I mean, I was wondering, what are each of your takes on immigration?
Do you want to go,
So my
Bella?
grandmother, I was about to say my grandmother is I love this because my grandmother is an immigrant. I mean, straight from my other motherland of Germany. So, I'm a black woman, but my grandmother, both of my parents, my father is black and Chinese. My mother is black and German. I am black presenting, so I am black every day in my skin. But my grandmother came to America, and I will always tell people that she came to America and she said, told from her children to her grandchildren, you are German, and I want you to be proud of being German too, but America doesn't care. You're Black. Now, this is from a German woman. She did not, she was like, I want you to be proud of your heritage, but when you are here, they do
Mm-hmm.
not care, right? And she taught us that. So I'm very proud of my German family and where she comes from and all that she's overcome. She came over here, she really didn't even know how to speak English in 1963, 60, 63. Yeah, she came here. So I always say she came here with a military husband. My grandfather is from Mississippi. So it's a Black man
Mm-hmm.
from Mississippi with a German woman from, so they come over here, and she never changed citizenship. She never gave up her German citizenship because she missed her home. But she's always done the green card work. She's always done everything she had to do. But for people that don't know, my grandmother has paid taxes to this country since she got a job in 1970. Excuse me, 1969, she got a job. She has paid into this country and she
Mm-hmm.
does not vote,
Yeah.
does not get to vote. She does not take anything, but she paid into this country for years. My grandmother worked from the time she was 28, and she did not stop working until she was 78 because she retired, and then she got herself a part-time job to keep herself busy. And that immigrant woman has paid into this tax system where she does not have any say in the government. So when people think she does not get a whole bunch of free stuff, to
Mm-hmm.
get her Medicaid and her Social Security, she had to have records of working. She goes to Chicago every 5 to 10 years to renew all of her paperwork in person. It is not an easy thing. And it was so much, but she compares it to now. She sees the process and she says, oh my God, if I would have had to do all that paperwork and things that they do now, I don't know if I would have made it.
Right. And that's what I don't think a lot of Americans understand is, when they say, well, I'm fine if they come here legally.
Right. It's
But
so
then if they
hard.
overstay, again, it is not easy to keep everything current.
Nope.
And they're making it less easy to keep things current.
They
And
just
what are you
increased the
supposed to do?
prices
Like go back to
on,
your country and then try to come again? It makes sense that people would overstay
yep.
and work with the system to try to get everything current. But it is working against them.
Yeah, it's so much easier to stay and try to work it out because even if you send, like, I don't think people know, even if you send the lag time, even if somebody sends a letter in of consideration to have an extension 3 or 4 months early, the lag time can be up to 6 months. And they have to look at so many things, and it's so convoluted. The people say the right way. If they knew the amount of testing and paperwork, they just increased the prices. And I don't think people know that. Just to file, they almost doubled the prices to file for a green card. And it went from, I want to say, 600, I think it was 600, it's either $657, $675. And I'm sorry, it didn't double, it 50% up. So it's like $857 now. It's a huge increase. And this is to populations who, in a lot of ways, I'll be honest, my grandmother was a factory worker, and then
Mm-hmm.
she helped clean a spa. Right. So these are blue collar working people. $200 jump is a huge thing, but she's kept up with everything. But like I said, she looks at the paperwork now, and I'll be totally honest, the stuff she has to fulfill now, we do it for her because she's 80 plus years old and filling out those forms. She has me. She has her daughter in laws. She has all of her grandchildren, her daughters. We help make sure this file is ready. Now, mind you, it's 5 women putting together this file, double checking each other, putting everything in order, having the checklist, putting it on a file, and then someone driving her to Chicago. Everybody doesn't have that. They don't have a bunch of people that, hey, I want you to be here and we know how the system works. So let's make sure we have all your stuff. Let's make sure we take extra. Let's make sure you're not there alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is, I just speak on immigration from that standpoint. I don't think anyone's ever went through the process. And like I said, she loves this country. She loves her home too, but she loves this country. And I will say this, my grandmother was born in 1940. My grandmother survived Hitler. My great grandfather, my opa, was forced into the German army because he said he did not want to fight. And when he told them he wouldn't go, they set his wife and his 2 children against a brick wall with machine guns in their face and said, you either go or we're going to kill your family and you're still going to go. My grandmother was 3 years old and she remembers that. She remembers being put on a wall and her father yanked out of her house. My grandfather had what they called then shell shock. He had PTSD from what happened to him. Right. But I love telling this story because he says when the Americans came and freed them, they had to, it was almost like figuring out who was actually a Nazi and who was forced. And they had to do all this interrogation. Yep. They had to do all these questions because they did start that when they were losing, they were just snatching boys and men off the street. They were trying to take people who had one arm, one leg. They were so destitute. They were taking all the men back. So first of all, people that are listening, this is a firsthand story from my grandmother and from my great grandmother that I got. These are firsthand stories. So he comes back, and when the American soldiers arrive, he has always told the story that why he liked my grandfather, because it was so, this black man is coming into our family. I'm going to have all these mixed children. And everybody asked him why. So he said the American soldiers came, and he said the soldiers that looked like him were actually very mean to him. He said one of the things he always talked about is he would be trying to urinate, and the American white soldiers would shoot at them between their legs. And it would be so cold that it would just stop your pee, and then you could not pee because you were so frightened. And it was during a segregated army. And he said that's what saved his life. He said because the black soldiers would come and they would sneak them extra blankets. They would sneak them food. They would sneak them cigarettes. And I know people think that's like horrible, but back then, like, I just want you to get through this, right? And he said he already did not agree with Hitler. He said, but those men being kind to him pushed into his head that good men are good men and bad men are bad men. And that was it. And so my grandfather was just like, he was like, just be a good man. That's all I need you to do. And I say that story to people because we're so tribalized and we're so separate that I hope something so traumatizing doesn't have to happen to you. But to wrap back to what's happening with like Renee, my white female friends are like, this is so terrifying. I am so scared. I am so this. And I'm like, yeah, it's like perpetual black mama fear. And they're like, right. And they literally like, why I love it, because when I say it, it's not an offense. They're like, oh my God, Marvella, you do feel like this all the time. I'm like, yeah, all the time. Yeah. So I wrap all this back around as we should not have to have things happen to us and to be fearful just for us to understand that this is not okay. Sorry, I went full circle, but yeah.
Jack, you have any thoughts on immigration?
Yeah, I would say we know that our country is dependent on immigrants. And at one point, we were all brought to this country. I think it was, for me, on my mom's side, my great-grandparents and their parents, so some of them came as kids. It's not that far removed that my family immigrated. If we're talking about that, Stephen Miller's grandparents immigrated. And then they're talking about heritage Americans. And I'm like, what are you talking about? At what point, at what generation are you heritage? Because you're not that far out from your ancestors who immigrated to this country. I just think it's crazy. I also think, we were close. We were close to being a country of multi-faith and multiculturalism that worked. And now we're seeing all of that attacked, attempted to be rolled back. I don't know if you guys saw, I watch this podcast regularly. It's these 2 women from Oklahoma City that I've had a podcast where one of her clips went viral when she was saying, if you are not for multiculturalism, get your fat ass to Cracker Barrel. You don't deserve to be in a Mexican restaurant. You don't deserve to be in these other multicultural restaurants. It went viral. I know she said she was attacked by all the Fox News watchers and got a lot of hate mail and anti-women and sexually graphic threats, which is what happens when a woman speaks out and goes viral for saying something that hits a nerve. But again, we were really close to showing that could work. And then it's all being attacked and some big attempts to roll all of the progress back.
Yeah, I think you hit upon it, and Bella, really appreciate how deep your story goes, but I don't think it has anything to do with immigration. I think it's where they're immigrating from.
Okay.
Nobody ever talks about Eastern Europe immigration. That now that we have a whole Russian mafia network through throughout the United States, or Armenian gangs and things of that nature, and every culture. I have friends that are Russian. I'm not attacking. Not going to be like the folks on the other side. I'm not attacking one side or nothing, but you don't hear about that.
Well, and we're not
It's
calling them criminals and thugs.
No, exactly. It's the non-Western
Mm-hmm.
European countries that are the problem. And when you explain certain things, like you said something about it, Vela, and you said something about Jackie about a healthy country, economics let you know that strong immigration is a show of a healthy country. That's why you know that in the future they're saying they're predicting that Brazil is going to be a superpower because the amount of immigration that's coming
Mm-hmm.
toward it right now and the minerals that it sits on as well. And most of these people who are saying immigration bad, they know that. They're not dumb.
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying the loud part out loud. That it's not about immigration. It's not about Vela, your German heritage. They're fine.
Oh yeah.
The top three Asian countries like China, Japan, and South Korea, they're fine.
So I will tell you, not so much.
Well, not
Because
so much
because
as
they
West, but they're finer than
yeah, they are fine. But I will
certain
tell
other
you because they
areas.
don't like, and I will say that that's a tech job taker.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
that's
But it's not
always
as bad
the
as
thing.
India tech job takers. Oh my
Oh
goodness,
no.
no. So I think it is not about immigration. I think it's the same
Mm-hmm.
issue that we've
Who?
always had in this
Which
country. It's a cultural, racial issue because when you listen to what jobs that the majority of the immigration are taking, you hear a farmer out west talk about, I've had this job opening for 5 years and I've never seen an American apply for that job, not
Right,
once.
right.
right.
So to me, it's a little bit more. They just won't say it. But I know we got to
Mm-hmm.
go to other subjects, and I'll let you get back on it, Jackie. But I just wanted to
Yeah,
think about it because it's such a big deal right now, immigration.
right, right. And I think we're unfortunately going to learn what happens when they deport a lot of our immigrants. But also, I'm wondering because what we're seeing in Minneapolis doesn't seem to really be about immigration. Initially, they said they were going there to investigate the widespread fraud,
Hmm.
which I would expect is largely
Which
a
is not
desk
true.
job and with
Mm.
documents and spreadsheets. And why are you in a neighborhood? And why are there 10 of you in this neighborhood? Because was there one house there that was largely responsible for all this fraud? Why are you pulling a person out of their car? It's now looking like any pushback or any opposition is a reason to arrest them, beat them up, cause them damage.
You're running
Exactly.
in
That's
It
a
seems like
elementary
the
schools.
immigration has gotten very blurry, I feel like,
Yeah.
watching Minneapolis.
If you're running in high schools and elementary schools and middle schools, you're not looking for violent criminals, the children.
Right, right.
and like Jackie said, Villa, it's not a violent criminal investigation. It's a white collar investigation. If you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about fraud, like she said, that is people in suits in here following the receipts, the money, and things of that nature. That's the type of investigation they'd have in any other case. Enron, you didn't see them going in the most wealthiest places in Silicon Valley and
Nope.
bringing troops in to go. No, they stayed on computers. They were very pinpoint. They found who their main perpetrators were and they took care of business. And that should have been the same thing if it's about fraud.
But the craziest thing is that guy who said it was fraud, he's just a rando. And then it was proven that he was wrong because you don't let random people into a daycare. If they would have let this man, I don't know, into a daycare, daycares, I don't know where people are at. Maybe you never dropped someone off at daycare. When daycares, there's a locked door on the outside.
Yup.
Then there's a
Yeah.
middle door that you have to either put in a code or have a password and
Or they
talk
have
to
cameras
somebody.
now too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they let you come in. You don't walk into a daycare because people are crazy and people take people's kids. So what made you think that they were going to let you? They've never seen you walking and you have a camera.
Right.
You're going to videotape these people's kids? All these things are violations. My kid's school sends me a form to say, can I take pictures of your kid?
Right.
Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So you think you're going to walk into, so it's some of it is, like I said, the common sense of it. You have a kid in daycare, even if you're an auntie, when you show up, you got to give an ID and a password to pick up your niece or nephew if you're on the pickup list. And if you're not on
Right.
that pickup list, that baby's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about fraud? Like you said, it was just something they used, and then it's like, now I'm running it on everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
It's
again, I mean, they're like in that instance in Minneapolis with Renee Good, they're talking about they were trying to direct traffic and she was in the way. And I'm like, ICE is not traffic directors. That is not their job. And why are they blocking streets? It's crazy. And then the amount of ICE numbers that we have when the mayor of Minneapolis was like, our police force is about 600. I think St. Paul is similar, 600. We have 2,200 ICE agents, and then they sent 1,000 more. That's insane.
You have a great point, but the crazier part of this is, I don't care who you are. Let's all go to the fact of who is getting in a car when a bunch of masked men with no identification and I can't see their
Mm-hmm.
face are jumping out of unmarked cars and throwing, and I'm a woman. They tell you that's how you get sex trafficked.
Yeah.
Men
Yeah.
jumping
And
out of a van,
some of them have just gotten a uniform and sexually assaulted
Mhm.
women,
assaulting
and they
people
aren't
because
part of ICE.
exactly, because I don't have to see your face. You don't have to show me identification. You don't have to do anything, and you can be in any car. You're making this so dangerous for people. Like I said, as a
Mm-hmm.
woman, I'm not, heck no, I don't know if you're real or not. There are people or
Mm-hmm.
men stealing police lights, and now they don't have to go that far anymore to
Yeah.
sexually assault.
Yeah.
They can just grab us. And so we have that going on. And I will say this. I saw a meme a woman put up and it like hit me in my core. And it was the officer that shot Renee Good after when he called her a fucking bitch. And you can hear him call her that. She said, every woman that has turned down a man and had to physically move herself knows exactly what that fucking bitch meant. Because that wasn't like, oh, damn, I did it. It was, oh, I wanted to hurt you. Every woman that has had to turn down a drink, had to say, no, I don't want to give my number, knows what that meant because
Mm-hmm.
I want to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was listening to a focus group that Sarah Longwell at the Bulwark does. She does a lot of focus groups, and they're frustrating to listen to. But I was listening to one about the Minneapolis shooting, and they were Biden voters to Trump voters. So that was the audience that she was talking to. And there was a woman talking about this that was saying, I mean, I don't know that it's right. And I don't really know if she hit him or not. I can tell that he was kind of scared and her partner was being mouthy to him and you shouldn't do that to men. And I'm like, really? Because we could get killed? I'm sorry if he is going to be given a gun, he should be able to emotionally regulate. He should be able to. We haven't hit on the fact that they're not trained well at all
At
before
all.
they're put out into the field, and they don't really have to meet any qualifications. And when the vice president came out and said, yeah, this happened to him 6 months ago, don't you think he's a little sensitive? Well, he probably should be out on the streets then. If he's still a little trigger happy, if he's likely to overreact because of something that happened 6 months ago, why is he out there? Why was he allowed to be out there? Because in most law enforcement jobs, they wouldn't be out there. They'd
Nope,
have
you'd
to
be on a
pass
job.
some
Same
psychological testing and stuff
psychological. Yep.
until you were able to be re-released. So there's a lot that we're just like in the conversations that I think we're missing. The fact that her not cooperating should not mean she gets executed.
Mhm.
Her partner mouthing off to ICE should not mean that she had to witness her partner being executed.
You
Four
can't
times.
get
She was shot four times.
your kids can't talk. You can't say my teenager talk crazy to me and say I hit him. They're gonna come take your
Uh-huh.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I worked in behavioral health. I've worked in healthcare for 25 years, and half of it's been behavioral health. Other half has been traditional med surge. And even in behavioral health, we get cussed out. There's whole TikToks and things showing how the patients cuss us out on a regular.
Mm-hmm.
We're not allowed to engage in any kind of way with
Yeah.
that. You
You're not
immediately
given a
lose your
gun.
job. You can get charges pressed. Somebody could be attacking you, and you could physically feel that your life is in danger. And if you swing back and connect, the state might possibly press charges against you. So there's other spots where
Where you have to have
it's
more
mind blowing.
self-control.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. You have to, and you're expected to. And I mean, and you think about it. I always just think about from a parent standpoint. I was thinking about the young man who was working at his job at Target, and they came in, and he was a citizen. He's a citizen. He's an American. Now, let's not stop saying citizen. He's an American, United States of America, and he was snatched out, which was, I'm sure, was traumatic. He was roughed up. It was found that he was an American citizen, and then he was tossed out on his face a mile away in a Walmart parking lot. And people are really not speaking about that. And the reason being, it's a privilege not to have to worry about speaking like that because we all know exactly why he was picked because he was not white. And they
Accent.
thought that possibility was
Yep.
fine because when you say that, they're like, oh, no, that's wild. That I'm not sure that could. I'm not really worried about Jimmy and Trish and stuff and things of that nature because you don't have to. And I think that is something that America has been dealing with since its birth, since the experiment started, and I think it continues to this day. And it shows
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't imagine being called at work and somebody saying that happened to my child.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's a citizen. You don't know if there's
Yeah.
military background, if his pops or dad or mom is an officer. It could be all kinds of things.
Let's talk about all the military vets that they're deporting.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The,
yeah.
Yeah.
these are medal recipients that they are like, oh, well, yeah, you came over here when you were 5, and then you came and you gave us 20 years of your life. But you know what? Who cares? We're gonna send you. So that's the they don't even care about they say they care about the military. No, they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, and we spoke about that. I hear a lot of people say, "Well, Obama deported more," and he did.
Yeah.
Numbers why he deported more, and they say, "Well, what's the difference?" And I find that disingenuous because
Yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
can see the difference.
It's
And
a
what I mean
physical
is how it
difference.
was done. There were tiers. He followed the tiers. So he put
Yes.
criminals, and there are criminals. There's criminals, there's American criminals. So of course,
Mm-hmm.
some of the immigrants are going to be of a criminal nature. That's just being honest. He put them at the top of his list. And everything else, he did considerations, including military considerations, ties to the community, things that should be thought of. And then they would be put back in the process and go through the process. And it wasn't all criminals that he deported, but he had a tier system. There wasn't ICE jumping out of trucks, or what did they do one time? They came down out the helicopters, like we were
Helicopter.
watching the movie, like one
Oh,
battle
that was on
after
American.
another.
That was in
Like
Chicago on American City. That
that's
almost that was
and
a
they didn't
that's
arrest
a
nobody in the
terrifying.
whole building.
No,
Right.
but they
No.
separated. They separated parents and children, had them outside in their nightgowns, had children zip tied. If that didn't, I knew when that didn't disgust America. But guess what? Let's be clear. Those were a bunch of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in
And
Chicago.
also, I don't know that most Americans saw that.
That's
Like
true.
again, how many even saw that news story?
That's
Because
true.
that was insane. Like, it was insane. I was like, you
So
went
Yeah, that was
to
insane.
an American neighborhood, dropped down out of the sky like a movie,
Yep.
and
And go
separated
in the middle of the night.
children in the middle of the night and cooked in people's apartment doors and literally took children in diapers and toddlers and zip tied them away from their parents. And I'm like, why is America not mad?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
but
and
then why did they not know the story? Also, let's be clear. It was a black neighborhood, a poor black neighborhood. So that's not news for most people anyway. Because in
Mm-hmm.
some mind, as Jackie, you've already said, oh, if they just comply, see, they went home, they should be happy. They all
Mm-hmm.
nobody died. They just were doing their jobs.
What I have to say is there's a lot of criminals that live in this Tren de Aragua gang members who live in this apartment building, and people are like, okay,
Yeah, but
because
is it
we've
all?
lost track of the fact that, again, anybody who's here, the Constitution does not say citizens have a right to due process. It's people. People.
yep,
That's any person that's here, legal or not legal, tourist or not a tourist. Like, it is anybody who is on American soil has a right to due process. But due process is going out the window. And
Yeah,
again, some people see that happening for immigrants and brown people and think, oh, that's a threat to everybody. And others have to wait until a white woman is shot and killed to be like, oh no, this feels real to me. I'm a
yeah,
mom. I'm white. But when it starts, it doesn't take happen to your race or your gender or where your ancestors were from. It can happen to anybody.
yeah. I think it's something else people probably don't know. America has had treaties with several Native American tribes for hundreds of years at this point, and they're trying to break every one of them. They're
Hmm.
trying to go on those people's land. They want to frack. They want to send pipelines through their land, and they're like, "Well, we have a treaty," and they're like, "Yeah, but this is a shorter route for us. So screw your treaty. We're gonna do what we want." And Americans either they don't know or you don't care because there is a contract they are breaking with these people after doing horrendous things to them, right? And we're going to give you this little piece of land. And now, you know what? That's not enough. We exterminated your entire population. But you know what? We still want more because now we need more, right? So
There
you're,
was, I don't remember which Native American tribe sued, but where they were putting alligator Alcatraz on
yep,
their land. And they sued and they
oh,
have
was it Seminole land?
yep,
what, yeah, and they've retracted, I think I read their lawsuit just because they're like, this is crazy. There's no law that's happening, right? So they can come and they can violate your rights. They can try to build this horrific detention center, prison on your tribal land. But who's going to uphold the law saying you can't, right? It's these situations where it's like, who are you going to go to report crimes? I mean, maybe locally, if that's still working, but that depends on skin color. That depends on
so many
socioeconomic
factors.
status.
Yep.
Hmm.
And now Christy Nome said that American citizens should be ready to prove that they're an American citizen
Yes,
at all
they should
times
be
now.
walking with papers. That's crazy.
The land
I
of the free.
the land of the
Yeah,
free. We're all walking around with our papers. And the last, I'm just gonna tell you, as Black people, this is never good.
yeah, yeah.
You know, we this was right around the corner, and people don't think it like Black people walk around with papers like 80 years ago. That
Hmm.
it was like a tap in the corner of like apart and think of papers. Papers just end apartheid in South Africa just ended in the 80s, and they were running
Yeah,
around with papers.
80s, 88, 89. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Late
late
80s.
late
Yeah.
80s.
late 80s. And the only reason that even ended is because people stopped having concerts there. They affected their economic status because of apartheid and they stopped. They had no
Hmm.
plans on not having grown people walk around on their own land, proving that they should be there and how they
Hmm.
could move into different areas, right? So I'm saying it's you know, it always starts somewhere. And people think it's Hispanic, but now it's Somali. But the other
Hmm.
part I don't think and we have not touched on is a lot of it is also retaliation from
Yes.
the actual government. And that should make everybody afraid.
Yes.
If you, I don't care who you agree with, but you can't be a don't tread on me type of person and then see the the president of the United States saying, I'm mad at Minnesota because they didn't vote for me. And I'm mad at Colorado because they didn't vote for me. So I'm going to withhold funds and I'm going to send people in like they did to Chicago. You didn't do what I wanted you to do. Your
Well, Vela,
governor's
what he
not.
said is he thinks he's won every time in Minnesota, but they didn't say he did. But he thinks
Yeah.
he did win Minnesota every time.
Yeah. But he was also like flabbergasted, like even the whole Georgia thing. Like
Yeah,
Georgia
yes.
with Biden, like, oh no, I won Georgia because he couldn't believe that the governor won and he didn't. And I'm like, so you think people could not vote for one and then be like, no, but I don't like you. Like maybe I can't vote for Stacey Abrams, but I also can't vote for you. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like the split ticket, and they're like, oh, fine, new votes. Even the governor of Georgia was like, if I do that, what am I going to do? Because I won. So you're saying these, so how's that going to change for him? So, I mean, it's just a lot of crazy factors, but I'm saying all that to say he is physically, no, there is a retaliation in the government now.
And they're asking states to turn over voter data, like private voter data they want.
And the
And
man who has mail-in voted his entire life is saying mail-in voting is now not okay.
but the only reason they would want voter data is to know who has not voted for him and who would stand against what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
That should be concerning to everyone
Everyone.
that
Because if
the
you're a
federal
real
government
American,
wants our state voting data.
if you're a real American, I tell everybody this. If my party never wins again, but every American, that's what they like, the majority, fine. I am a hater now of the electoral college. I'm so over it.
Oh yeah.
I'm so over the electoral college because that was for when people couldn't. I tell people, if you don't understand, it's when people could not read and did not have actual access to voting. We don't have that anymore. Okay. You needed someone to be like a surrogate for your best interest. We're very much past that. So everybody's vote should count. It should be an individual thing. But I say all that to say, you you should want every American vote to count. Every person that can count and that is here and should be able to vote should vote, and you should want them to, whether that means you win or you lose. Because if you're telling me, no, I don't want them to, because I want it this way, that means you don't really want the democratic process. You just want what you want.
I have to say, Bella, listening to some of these focus groups, I'm like, maybe we should rethink everyone gets to vote. And I know that that's not okay. I know that's not okay. I am for democracy. But I'm like, maybe it just shouldn't be so hard to understand
The verbiage on some of
candidates
that stuff.
and what they're asking. It should not be that complicated. It should be much easier to understand what a candidate is for or against, and even what parties are advocating for or against. I think that's become something that, why are you a Republican? Because my parents were Republican, my grandparents were Republican. I mean, that's very true in my state. Well, I'm Republican because good Christian people are. Well, what about me? Do you not think I'm a good person?
Look, are you about to
Say
say that's
that.
a big?
I like that you say that good Christians are Republicans. And I would ask
That's
anybody,
a
I'm not
cultural
thinking
thing.
of any of y'all, but what is a good Christian supposed to do? Because I don't feel, I grew up in the church. I'm not very religious. I don't mind saying it. I don't fake the funk ever. I'm not very religious at all. But I did grow up in the church. I grew up reading the Bible thoroughly. And I listened to a podcast the other day by, I think it was Ezra Miller podcast with James Tallarico on the
Ezra
rise.
Klein, I think it was.
Ezra Klein. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about comics now. Ezra Miller is a character.
I was about to be like, what?
Ezra James Tallarico was saying and speaking on it, and I was like, thank you. Because I don't see nothing very Christian about what's going on. I try to sit there and like try to look at it from everybody's standpoint. I always try to lead with empathy before running my mouth. Where is this person? What are their fears? What are they going through? I think in the last podcast we were in, I spoke about empathizing and understanding, seeing, and how scary it must be seeing the world that you're used to being eroded and changed into different things. I like change. as far as a worldview and stuff like that. So it's easier for me than maybe somebody else. But just from a moral standpoint, I have people that are deacons in the church putting up, hang whoever, burn Tim Waltz, things of that nature. And I'm like, that's not very Christian.
No.
I'm like, that's not very Christian at all. And like James Tallarico was asking, he was like, I know, don't judge and be kind to thy neighbor and things of that nature. And I'm missing it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't see it.
No.
And so for me, I try my best, but my face can't hide it. Like the eye roll that I have when somebody starts yapping to me about the Bible or their Christian values. And I be wanting to say, your Christian values are super shitty. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
Christianity is, but your values are trash. Second of all, if you need a book in a religion for you to be a good person, you're not a good person, in my opinion.
Right.
Yep.
I
And
mean,
so I
I
always
will
get
say,
irritated when it comes up.
yeah, I will say I've been a mental health therapist for 30, 31 years, something like that. And prior to 2015, politics just never really got talked about in sessions. And in 2015, it was shocking to me because I was like, we haven't had to have a lot of political conversations. And the other thing that I saw in Trump's first administration is then we started talking a lot about religion. A lot of people were having a faith crisis. And so we're talking politics and faith crisis. And again, that just wasn't really something that I'd ever worked a lot with in the therapy sessions. And it was a lot. And sometimes I was even like, is this me? Am I somehow transmitting my bias? I've never brought up my politics or my stance on religion, but am somehow I like sending out the signal. Anyway, I was like, no, of course I'm not. But, and then Biden gets reelected and it somewhat dies down. I was working the day of January 6th and clients are coming in. Are you watching what's going on? I'm like, no, I'm booked all day. I just get hour by hour updates at what is horrifying people. Or I was working the day of the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearing, every female coming in. What are we doing? This man is a sexual predator and we're putting him on the Supreme Court. Yep. Yep, we are.
See, for both of those events.
What?
I was in DC for both of those
Oh,
events.
okay. Yeah. I was working and I just get hour by hour updates and I'm trying to help them talk about what they're experiencing while I'm also alarmed at what I'm hearing. I haven't watched it yet, but it's present for me too. And that's not typical in the therapy session that what's current and distressing for your client is also current and distressing for you. I remember having a conversation once with a neighbor, former neighborhood, who was religious and talking about her politics and saying, well, we're the party of family values. And I said, everybody values family. Everybody comes from a family. Everybody values family. What? You don't have a claim on that. And it was like, it
Woman,
never occurred to her. She was like, oh, I guess you're right. I'm like, yeah, we value family.
I get so mad when they do that. I think I told you before that time when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling for the
Uh-huh.
flag, and I was discussing it with somebody, and somebody said, "You just don't understand how much blood my family has shed for that flag, being a military family." And I said, "Oh, what would make you think
That I won't understand.
that I wouldn't understand that?" They act like they have their own private thing as far as that goes. Like you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, you're a leftist, whatever you want to call it. You definitely couldn't have any family values,
Right? We're just
not at
heathens
all.
out here. Yeah.
I
Yeah, it's
mean,
just out
and let
here, kids can do anything.
I always say this: if you have a black grandfather or great grandfather that served in this military to this country, they love this country more than anybody because they
Mhm.
served when they were treated like dog shit. They served and went and fought for this country when they weren't even considered me. So when you say something like that to me, knowing my grandfather went over there and how he had to hide his white wife in the back of his car for fear of being lynched, and you tell me we don't love this, we don't understand, you have no idea. And you should shut your mouth, because my great grandfather was serving when it was segregated and was high ranking, still being called boy. But because they were, even if they were white, they could be a private. He's a sergeant. They're calling him boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So how dare you tell me my family doesn't know? How freaking dare you?
Yeah. And I think that too, it's not like we live in this country for so many generations and that means we love this country. I've had clients who immigrated to the United States, and when they tell me about their immigration story, it's harrowing.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm amazed you survived. And they're like, yeah, me too. That happens because there's a hope, there's a belief that something can be different in this country. That's a love of this country. My husband and I raised our kids, who are all adults now, but we would just say, look, patriotism is not like rah, rah, our country's the best. And it was important to us as parents that all of our kids had spent time outside of the United States and other countries by the time they were 18. So they got enrolled in different programs that did that for high schoolers and exchange programs. So we wanted them to see outside of the United States. And we would say, yeah, in many ways, the United States has never really lived up to its promises. And to say, yay, our country's the best and it couldn't be any better, that's not patriotism. Patriotism is also looking with a critical eye and saying, hey, maybe we should be looking at this, because while we might have made progress here, we haven't made a lot of progress here. And we need to look at that, and we need to ask ourselves what needs to be different so that we can start working on this value that we uphold and this claim that we make about America. And that idea that it's more like American nationalism, this is no different than your high school being the best high school. And that is absurd, right? That pride that you have when you're in high school and you're like, yeah, we're better than our rivals. No, you're not. No, you're not, right? And it's similar, like, no, we're not the only free country that exists. And we have a lot of work to do on ourselves as a country.
Yeah, I think it stems from fear. It's the same thing with, you can even cross it over with another subject that we were going to talk about, as far as how men are feeling toward women's success nowadays and how those issues are happening. We've been told that we're the best for the last 40 years. And when you wake up and you pull that curtain back and you find out that we're not leading any significant statistic in the world, it's a shock. Besides the possession of guns and the cost of healthcare, but it's a
No,
shock.
no, there's one more. There's one more.
Oh yeah,
We
and
also have
mortal
the
infidel.
most confidence. We have the
Oh,
most
Oh,
confidence.
yes.
oh yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh,
We have the
100%.
most confidence. And I'm like,
100%.
we're confident idiots. Yay.
Yes, we are definitely, we're built like I am, and going in everybody contest as full as possible, just putting it all out there. But I think a lot of it goes back to not wanting to look at what's coming. I think it's fear, and I think it's crippling us in every way.
So I have a question. I have a question for Jackie, because you just talked about fear, and I want to bring this up. Jackie, when you were talking about a lot of your clients and their faith, and I'm sorry, because it's in my head. You were talking about their faith and their struggles with their faith during all of this. My big question is, when they bring their faith up, do they tend to be like evangelical, or do they tend to be Baptist, things like that? And are the majority of your clients, no shade, are they white? Because I have a follow-up question for this.
Yeah. So I live in Utah.
Okay.
So the
Yes.
majority of them, I would say, are LDS or Mormon. I have
Yes.
worked with evangelical clients. I've worked with some Catholic clients who've also told me MAGA is in our church, it's in our
Mhm.
pews, and they have a problem with it, right? Because they're
Mhm.
not what they were raised with is not what they're experiencing, not what they're watching. I've had some evangelicals who are also in faith crisis and just saying it's hard to find a church where everybody isn't pro gun, and I have little kids.
Yeah.
And I don't really want that mixed in with my faith, right, for my kids. And so, yes, I would say majority white, probably the majority LDS, Mormon. And then I've worked with people of Catholicism and evangelical too.
So I asked that to say, I remember all those groups, and literally my little cousin went to a evangelical church, and these are Black children. And the first time Barack Obama ran, they were being told in the second and fourth grade that he was the Antichrist. So these are Black children in a space that is completely unsafe for them, being told that the person that looks like them, even though he
Uh
is
huh.
smart and all those things, he's the Antichrist, the first
Yeah.
person, like, right? So it didn't have anything to do, but it had nothing to do with his faith or anything he did. It was the color of his skin.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm asking you this to go forward and say, they might not like it in their church and maybe it's not what they grew up on, I always ask those same people, so what are you doing about it? Because the one thing that I have found is I go back to the Martin Luther King quote of
Mm-hmm.
the white liberal is more concerned with order than they are with progression and my safety. Like, it can be orderly, but I can't concern myself with justice and equality. So those same people, they might not like it. But my question is, how many of them have had the hard conversations with their neighbor, with their aunt, with their mother? Because sometimes you're in a faith crisis because you're not actually acting on your faith.
Yeah, I would say those conversations can happen, but initially they're in this deconstruction of I know how they'll respond. I don't know how I respond. I'm
Okay.
still trying to get oriented to my new way of thinking and seeing things. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that takes some time for reorientation and figuring out, deconstructing and then reconstructing. And
Gotcha.
then they do have some of those conversations because their tolerance level has declined. They just can't tolerate this type of language or what's being said without any opposing viewpoint or thought process.
I love that. So that was my question because I was just wondering, how do you get there to the point where you're like, I don't like it, but I need to be confident on speaking on it? Because that's one of
Yeah.
the things people are like, why are people so comfortable saying these ugly things? I'm like, because nobody's checking them. And if
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a
Yeah.
room and I can say all these ugly things, and even the people that don't agree with me are too uncomfortable to speak out, I'm just going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So,
So,
Dion,
Dion,
I
you
have a
brought up
question.
fear. I wanted to hear you say more about this fear that paralyzes people.
I just I think there's certain fears. I talked to this one person the other day, and they brought up South Africa and they brought up a couple other countries, and it was a white man, and I would say intelligent white man. And he brought up the fear of minorities becoming the majority and literally slaughtering white people. And so I was like, that shit,
Wait,
that's
does he think that
far-fetched.
happened? Does he think that happened in
Oh
South
yeah.
Africa?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
think yeah. And I was thinking to myself, that's far-fetched. But I feel like if you believe it, that's your reality. And I think a lot of this stuff that's happening is an old thing that we've seen 100 times. I think a person is worried about not being on top of the hill no longer. And they worried about their sins of the past coming back to haunt them. And they're worried about not being in those particular spaces of power no longer. And what does that mean for their life, their livelihood, and their pursuit of happiness in this country? And I think it's easy to mock and laugh at them because that's I'm not perfect. That's my first thoughts. I'm like, you sound stupid. But that could be a very dangerous thought. And I think you're seeing it in this administration, in the people that are flocking to the things that are happening. I think you're seeing fear run that. And of course, racism is a part of that, and nationalism is a part of that, and a number of other things. But I think those are words, those are big things that we say. When you get down to it, basis of most things, like even anxiety, is fear and anger. So
Yeah, yeah.
But
same
but
thing.
but what's the root of that fear, Dion? Where does that fear that those things will happen, where does it come from?
They did it.
Huh?
Because they did it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I want to.
Yeah.
It
It,
comes from
it's
their
a
own guilt.
it
Yeah.
comes from their own
Yes.
guilt. But that's the part I want to, because I love this, because I always do the whole, when people say like white power versus black power, they're not the same thing. They're not.
No,
White
no.
power always meant somebody's got to die. You're going to be lesser. Like, you are beneath me. And they're like, oh, they say black power or power to the people. And I was like, no, no, no. That's not, I don't want to dominate you. I just want to be a human.
Yeah.
I just want to be equal. They're not the same, but they will equivalent the two. And I always go back to, they're like, the KKK versus the Black Panther Party. And I'm like, there is no point in time where you can find the Black Panther Party blew up a church with children in it. There's
Or had the
no
law
point in,
behind them.
and had the law behind them. There is no point in time that you can say that the Black Panther Party went into white people's homes and yanked the fathers out and hung them or shot them, castrated them, raped their wives. That's not what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But you can say that about the KKK. And one of those groups was on the terrorist watch list, and one of them was not. And it was not the group that was actually going around bombing. They never got on the terrorist watch list. But the Black Panthers, who were feeding children and only responded with violence when violence was approached, was on the terrorist watch list. So I'm saying that to say your expectation has never been met by us, but you're so afraid that that's what's going to happen, because once you got a little bit of power, once the Indians, excuse me, the Native Americans, the indigenous folks were nice to you, as soon as they were nice, you know what? I'm going to steal some land. I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take what they gave me, and I'm going to manipulate them, because that's what I chose to do. So why wouldn't you do it to me?
Right.
Man, I
You
think
know,
that's one of the biggest issues, and I agree with you, Vela. I could ask y'all, like, even when you look at, I look at a lot of stats. That's what I do. I look at trends, things of that nature. It's widening how much women of all colors are starting to go more liberal, and men are going more to the right side of things and conservative
Mm-hmm.
side of things. Why do you think that is?
So before I go there, let me say something to Bella, because you were bringing up with the white man that you were talking to. I mean, you hear this all the time as a critique of feminism too. Like if women had the power, they
Hmm.
would do what men did to them. And I don't know that that's true. Again, I think that comes from fear. And during the Me Too movement, again, I'm leading a men's group. Me and a co-facilitator, we're both females. We're leading a men's group, and the Me Too movement breaks. And I think the majority of the men were white, but then of means. And one of the nights, it was like that week that it broke, and a guy came into the group and said, wow, it feels really scary to be a man right now, because any of us could be accused of that. And I specialize with sexual issues. And some of the men who had been in their therapy a little bit longer were like, well, men like me and you should be afraid because we have a history. But I don't think every man is afraid. We have concerns because of things we've done. That's not everybody sitting in this room, though. And that silenced him pretty. And those moments, I have to tell you, in a therapy group, when they call each other out, I'm like, I would have paid you to do that, but then it wouldn't have been as powerful. And I just love you calling that out is more than if one of us two who are females called that out.
Yep,
Definitely.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
again, I think that's where it should be reversed back and said, well, do you have something to be afraid of? Would the women in your life turn on you? Would
Do
the
you have a
Black
reason?
people, would the people of color that you know turn on you? Because, or the lesbians and the gay men, would they turn on you? Because I don't live with that fear. I know I don't.
And yeah, I think exactly, you're exactly right. But I believe that they have that feeling that that's what's going to happen.
But that's also very short sighted,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
they cannot see beyond the status quo that on some level they're acknowledging is really messed up.
Yep.
And they cannot imagine a world where there is progress and it doesn't have that backlash
But that's the
because
same
they're
reason.
part of backlash when there's progress.
Exact. But that's the same reason with the progress of you can't use slurs and that's offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, then I'm going to get in trouble. So you don't want to be a better person. You want to be a trash person and you want to
Yeah.
speak to
Oh,
people
yes.
horribly
Right.
and you don't want to be held accountable. That's people being soft.
Uh-huh.
And then the whole thing is like, oh, you're being sensitive, but then you get called a Nazi, and it's like, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not racist. How could you say that about me? But you just said racist words. Like it
Uh-huh.
was a
Yeah.
joke. Like it's the compartmentalization of I want to hold everyone else accountable and I want to do what I want to do and I don't want to be called out for it. But that's the mentality of that's why I don't want anyone else in control because then I would have to watch what I had to say because that's what women are gonna. Oh my gosh, if the woman gets in trouble, I can't just tell women, oh, I have, I just got done breastfeeding, I da 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 da, and I can't be like, well, why is that baby still on your boobs? What are you doing? I
Mm-hmm.
can't say random things like this anymore. I can't be lurid and lewd and disrespectful, right? Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
do those things. And it makes me uncomfortable. Like this whole movement of it's the scariest thing of I'm tired of policing my words.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to talk to people?
Yeah. Well, if there's ignorance and somebody corrects you and says, hey, do you know what that means? And this is the word. Then you would still use the words you want. That's who you choose to be. And because I think most people, I've had this experience where a client that was identifying she, her started identifying they, them. And I'm doing the best I can to make that adjustment. But sometimes I'll use that reference she, and then I'm like, my bad, they or them, right? I think they appreciate the fact that I'm doing my best to adapt. I knew you this way when you came in. I've said this thousands of times. I'm doing my best to adapt because you get to decide what you call yourself. I don't care. But for the most part, if you got challenged and called out on a word and somebody said this is a more appropriate term, okay. Don't we want to learn? Don't we want to grow? Don't we want to evolve?
I walked into a restaurant the other day and what presented is all women to me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm very clear I'm an 80s baby. I walked in, I said, hey ladies, how y'all doing? And they turned around, I say, hey, hey, hey. And if anyone does not identify that way, my bad. I'm an 80s baby. I'm working on myself. And they just
Uh-huh.
laughed and they were like, you good? I was like, okay, like, hi
Yeah.
people. Sorry, y'all. Like, what's up, people? Can I get some food? And
Yes.
they were like, but they laughed and they just went on because I was like, look, y'all, I was born in the 80s. I'm working on myself. Like, it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
take me a minute to
Yeah.
get this because how you look to me, you know what I mean? And I've had people, I remember I had a hostess and the way they presented, I was like, I do not know how I should say yes, sir, ma'am. And I was like, I was like I said, I went to college in the South, so that really became a part of my vocabulary. So I just said, hey, how are you doing today? But I had to tell
Mm-hmm.
myself, like, don't say. And did that make me a bad person? No. Did it take me a little extra effort? Yes. Oh well,
Right.
I don't want
Right.
people calling me Marv. Don't call me
Uh-huh.
Marv. You can call me Vella. You can call me Marvella. Don't call me Marv. I freaking hate it. If I
Mm-hmm.
can ask people to do that, I can take a couple minutes and be like, how would you like me to address you? Because I want
Right.
the same respect.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I think again, sometimes we may be uncomfortable with differences, but if we can learn to tolerate that discomfort and open ourselves to learning, to some growth, we're going to be just fine. But for some reason, people translate that into a threat. Oh, you're different. That's threatening to me. And I get psychology wise, we can be wired that way. And if that wasn't something you were exposed to at young ages, you grow up and, something that looks different, sounds different, walks different, looks different to you, and you don't know what that means. And you're like, that's scary. It doesn't need to
You,
be.
Even with that being said, is it truly a problem? And what I mean by that is you hear people have a lot of issues and things to say about the trans community. And let's say I was just an old ignorant bastard and I didn't trans community as far as our population is about this
It's so
large.
small, so small.
Why in the world is that on your mind daily?
Mm-hmm.
because everyone, hey,
I've never
hey,
understood that in my life
I don't
since
care what
Right.
anyone says. And I'm gonna tell you something. One thing I found, whether it's somebody, especially these politicians, anybody who's like, I hate the gays, I hate the gays, I hate the gays, or I hate the trans, and da 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 da. They just go on and on. They have y'all not noticed that they all have a gay lover? They
oh yeah.
all
Oh
have a
yeah, yeah,
trans
yeah.
lover. When I see people, when people go too hard on it like that, it's a projection. I have found that
Mm-hmm.
every time. Like
No,
I tell my
they'll bring up other subject. They'll be like, "Well, I'm just more worried about the kids." I'm like, "Well, you should look into your family then, because more than
dude,
likely, the person that's going to molest your kids is somebody you know, a family
Mm-hmm.
member, somebody that you're close to. It's
Mm-hmm.
not,
Somebody that's made it past your screening.
yes,
yes, it's not the people." And then when you bring that up, they send me an article about the one who did this and whatever, and I'm like,
and I can send you
bring
50
up
about the
bring
straight
up the
college
20,000 that happen every day with the straight cis male that's doing it. I get really
that the
frustrated not to
pastor,
even
the youth
Yeah.
right,
pastor,
right.
or the coach.
Yes, I get extreme frustrated, and it's kind of off subject. Like when people will show me a black person, a black man, and they're Republican, and they'll bark back all the things that they wanted to hear, and they be like, "You see," and I'm like, "Well, okay, let's look at the last voting block. Last time when Trump got voted in,
Mm-hmm.
I said, let's look at the left side. Democrats carried 83% of the black vote. So why the hell do you keep on showing me the smallest percentage when overall you don't want to listen to anything from what the majority of a population is speaking to?
Mm-hmm.
And it upsets me. They pick and pop little things that feeds them and feeds their fear, feeds their paranoia, and they go with that instead of actually, well, maybe I should have a serious conversation with, it's obvious that by a wide margin, the majority feel this way. Why do they feel this way? By a wide margin, if I care so much about children, the molestation is happening in the home or in our schools, like Vela just
Or our
mentioned,
churches.
our churches. Why aren't we actually going deep and having all these big built out conversations into that if that is truly your passion? And so I
Mm-hmm.
find that it's not truly your passion. I find that, it just pushes a narrative that you're truly passionate about, not the
Mm-hmm.
actual subject matter of it. You know,
Yes.
I hear about people now, folks are saying, well, when school shootings are happening, it started looking like it was a certain type of person that was doing majority of the school shooting. And all of a sudden it went from this to like, oh, we have a mental health problem. Instead of bringing up that we have a lot of angry young white men that feel displaced and hate women
Mm-hmm.
and are shooting the hell out of our schools and our areas of education.
Right.
And they won't target the root cause analysis. They won't look
Yeah.
at, hey, we need to work as far as this goes. They'd rather make it a larger thing. It's a mental health issue. And then you'll start seeing a whole bunch of people get behind mental health issues and then say, hey, look at that black guy who tragically stabbed that young
On
on
that
the bus
bus.
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, you see, mental health. And they want you to look at that instead of saying, we have 10 to 20 shootings a day. And let's say we're at 20, 18 of them is the exact description that I just gave. That is sad. That was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the video on it. That was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, that 18 needs to be spoke about, talked about, studied, and we need to get in that and stop trying to push it off on other things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring up a thing what you just said. The one thing that even with that incident, where there is a huge cultural difference, when you will see a mass shooting, you will see white people in mass make excuses, call them child, say they were trouble, blah, 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 all these excuses. In mass, when black people saw that video, in mass, we were like, lock his ass up. He's a horrible person. He should have never been out of jail. He shouldn't have did that to that girl. There was not
Mm-hmm.
we as a whole, I'm not saying there's not one-offs black people that had an excuse for him, but as a majority, just like in the voting block, the majority of us was like, lock his ass all the way up. Yes, he needs therapy. He should get it, but he should get it in jail because he don't need to be free. We did not, it was not a thing for us to try to make him a victim because he's not a victim. Now, did he probably have some bad stuff that happened to him in his life? Probably. Did he probably need mental health? Yep. Does that excuse what he did? Nope.
Use
That
that.
Well,
You,
and speaking as a mental health therapist, if we're at a point where they're in that place where they're going to do a mass shooting, as a mental health therapist, I want gun restriction. I want to be able to say, parents, you need to lock up all your guns, and please do not let this young man get a gun until he's 25 because we have mental health. I would love that. If you're going to say it's a mental health issue, what would help me is
you just made us
is
lose half our listeners right there
I
talking
know,
about
I
gun
know,
restriction.
and especially in my
Jackie,
state. But if we're wanting to make it a mental health issue, I have something to say as somebody who's worked in the field for a long time. It would be very helpful if they could not get access to guns.
you sounded un-American, Jackie.
so look, I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all now. I own firearms. I
Hey.
I love my firearms. I'm very clear. So people probably on here like, what? You're a liberal. How do you? I'm a fan. Okay. Big fan. I have been using firearms probably since I was 5. I was taught by my grandfather how to properly use firearms and firearm safety. And I think that's the part that people miss. My grandfather has told me since I was 5, this is not a toy. You do not
Mm-hmm.
play with it and you do not point it at anything unless you're going to use it. And you don't point it at people unless you're like, this is a conversation with a 5-year-old. He told me
Mm-hmm.
this is only to be used if your life is in danger. Now, that went from a handgun to a rifle to a shotgun. And he taught me how to use all these things and I had these lessons. And then when I went to get my concealed carry and all the other things that I need, I knew how to take care of myself. Now, mind you, I teach my daughters the same thing, but I give them that same verbiage. This is not a toy.
Mm-hmm.
This is not something you play around with. You do not put it in a bag. I go through the whole scenario. And I say this to people as much as I love guns, firearms, and I think every responsible adult should have one, right? Responsible. I don't understand. We're going to go ahead and say this. You don't, there, my restriction is why do we have kids have to drive 130 hours to get a license, but we don't want people to have to take a class for 12 hours on firearm safety? You need to know how to use it, clean it,
Mm-hmm.
the history of it, and the gravity of if I put this bullet through someone's head, what it looks like. You need to know the gravity and the power that you hold in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why that's a problem. Yes, I want you to have guns, but I need you to understand if we're talking about vehicles are a privilege and you could kill somebody, why are we handing out guns when somebody walks into the
Mm-hmm.
freaking Walmart?
Right.
That is it is disingenuous. And just because it is a right on the Constitution doesn't mean it doesn't need rules. It's a right to vote on the Constitution, and don't none of you motherfuckers have a problem with making all
Mm-hmm.
the rules to go vote. So
Yeah.
why we can't make rules about getting a firearm? If we can make rules for one constitutional right, we can make rules for another one, and we can have safe gun laws. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why people want to own a gun and you can't even clean it. You
We've
don't know how to
had
take it apart.
we've had safe gun laws. In the 90s, we had a gun
Yep.
law.
After the
And
attempted assassination of Reagan.
Yep.
we had a gun law in the 90s. We couldn't have certain rifles and things of that nature. And our
Then
numbers
the
were down.
AR-15 came
Our
back.
numbers went down.
Our
Yeah.
numbers were down. And then once that ran out and we didn't renew and it was dismissed, our numbers have quadrupled and doubled and tripled every year
Mm-hmm.
since then.
We
It's
have more
like we don't
guns
have a
in this
history.
country than people.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I
Oh
will
yeah.
say,
And I don't
like,
have no problem with guns either.
my husband is a gun owner. Our kids know how to shoot. I'm not interested. I'm just like,
That's it.
I
I'm
don't
good.
care, right?
Jackie's like, no, y'all can have it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And several years ago, I was at a book club and all the women are getting their concealed carry and they're trying to get me to do it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And frankly, I'm a little more scared hearing that all of you are getting a concealed carry. And they're telling me, well, they make them for women now. And one of them said, you can get pink accessories. And I said,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
good. I will be killed by a gun that's pink accessorized. No, I don't. I don't want one. I'm not comfortable with one. I know my limits. I'm fine. But some of the gun worship, I think, is the problem.
Oh yeah, like I said, the thing that saved me is my grandfather. Like I said, absolutely is an avid, but it was respect, and I don't think people understand the difference. There is a respect for having
Yeah.
a firearm, and that you understand what you have versus the bang bang shoot 'em up. I've watched Call of Duty too. I played Call of Duty too many times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a difference. So I know what I'm doing. Do you know what you can do, but you don't understand the weight of the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. So, Dion, you had brought up the gender gap between politics that we're seeing between young men, young women. And we didn't really go into that. So let's talk a little bit about that when political identity becomes tied up with gender and how that affects relationships, how it affects cultures, how it affects family bonds. Let's talk about that.
I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's extremely interesting. I could ask y'all, would you, if I know both of you are married, so hello to the husbands out there, but would you possibly, if you were single, and I hope you're never single, but if you were, date somebody who didn't believe, who wasn't on the same side of the spectrum politically than you? And I think that's what we're looking at in the States right now, and that's what we're dealing with right now is a lot of men have a lot of conservative thoughts, and I think women overall are just a little bit more open-minded, and I think that's causing a lot of issues. And there's been studies that say that's what's lowering the birth rates. I mean, it's all
Yeah.
kinds of things that are out there
Mm-hmm.
currently right now. Really want to sit back and see how the women on here feel about it because I'm not a woman, if you ain't tell. And I have my own thoughts, but I heard some years ago this thing called mansplaining that sometimes is an issue. So
Turns
my
out it
daughters will
is.
probably say that I do that. So I'm
Mm.
trying not to.
I will say I work with clients who are adult females, divorced on the dating market. And this was maybe a couple years ago, where they would say, I don't want politics to be something I eliminate something over. And I'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. And then they'd go on dates with MAGA men, Trump supporting men. And they'd tell me about their dates, and usually didn't lead to a second date. And eventually they'd say, I think that has to be a line for me. I wasn't wanting it to, but given the men I've gone out on dates with who are, I wouldn't say they're conservative in terms of conservative values historically. So that's where I'm saying MAGA supporters, MAGA men, they're like, I can't do it. And I had like several, like five, six female clients who were like, turns out it's not workable. I can't do it. And some of that was the guy on the date didn't know how to talk about anything else. And if they said, well, I don't think that, or I have this opinion, it became tense, right? And they're just like, I can't, that's uncomfortable for me. I don't want to be with somebody where I can listen to their opinion and then I can say, here's where I disagree. And they can't handle that.
Do you think it's because our politics have become a greater aspect of our identity now compared to before? Because, like before, if I remember my parents in the 80s and older people, what side we were on or voted for was, to me, it didn't seem like that was a huge aspect of our overall identity. Yeah, now I come up in the 80s, culture
Uh-huh.
was, but it wasn't so much politics in particular was this is my identity.
Yeah. I think politics has become a lot more um, intertwined with people's identity. And I think that's why hearing a different point of view feels threatening, is because that's threatening to who I am as a person, which, again, politics should never be mixed with identity. There's a lot of things that I don't think work when they're mixed with a person's identity, religion being another.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Vela?
So for me, I have to make a clear distinction. There are MAGA Republicans and there are John McCain Republicans. So is it something that I'd prefer? No. But I always think of John McCain. I didn't have to agree with everything he said, but John McCain was a man of respect and a
He
man
was a
of
good
principle.
man.
He's a
Hmm.
good man, and he was a walk the talk type of man. John McCain was pro life. John McCain also adopted children. You know what I'm saying? There was that man walked the life that he's that on his principles, right? So I respect that. Would it be somebody I would first jump out and choose? No. But could I probably see myself that we have potential because he's a John McCain type of man, which took in, I'm going to take in the facts and make the best decision and probably shake a little bit. I could see myself dating someone like that. I could
Mm-hmm.
see myself having those intellectual conversations because also maybe you can expose me to something because usually, as we know about John McCain, he read, he was intelligent. There is a conversation to be had with an intelligent person, and we can learn perspective, right? Can I date a MAGA? Hell no. And I mean, absolutely not, because now we're living with, like you said, we're watching videos, we're watching factual evidence. They're like, no, that didn't happen. I've heard from people, the president say something, that's not what he meant. Well, what the hell did he mean? Here's what he said. No,
Mm-hmm.
you're taking it out of context. Me, I'm taking it wrong. That type of delusion, it's not your political. I'm not dating anyone delusion. You can be a liberal. And if you tell me everything Barack Obama did was the best thing ever, he never made a mistake and the sun sets on his ass, you also crazy. I don't want to deal with you. I don't deal with crazy people. And when I say that, I mean people that don't have critical thinking skills and can't have an intelligent conversation. So my answer is probably a little more nuanced in that realm. I don't want to date an extremist of anything.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, studies show that competition is killing chemistry between us.
Yeah.
So men find that the better you guys do financially and career wise, I think it was like 38%, 42%, something like that. I sent notes. I should have sent notes to you too, Villa. That's my fault.
In my head for
Um,
whatever reason.
but but like 38 or 40% of Republican men, they found believe that women gains are at their expense.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't grow up like that. I grew up where there was the men were very successful, and I grew up where the women were very successful and educated. And I was always taught that your success is bringing more back to the plate, to the pot, to the family, and stuff
Correct.
like that. So, I wanted you to be like Vela or Jackie, like, yeah, baby, go get that VP. Like, let's get this money. I was excited about that, but there was still respect there because I was handling as a man, I was handling my business. So there was also a respect aspect where I didn't feel less of a man. And I think that's also a personal thing because nobody should
I
be
was
able to
just
make
about to
me
say that.
feel less of a
Yep.
man
Yep.
from that
Yes,
nature.
but that's a you thing. I was going to say
Hmm.
all this comes from the confidence of a man. As much as they try to project that women are gold diggers and that we equate you just to your paycheck, that's actually not a woman thing. That's a man thing. That you are not a man unless you make six figures. You're not. That's pushed by the red pill community. That if you don't make these things, then you're not a man, right? They push this and then they're like, that's what women think. No, women think if you're not nice to me and you don't open my door, you're a dickhead and I don't want to date you. And everybody's like, oh, you don't have a personality. Other men have told you all you had to do was pay the bills and be strong. And that's why she picked you. But if we can pay our own bills, you got to come with a personality, Jack. Like, you don't know how to have a conversation. You don't look at art. You don't read. And you don't even watch cartoons. Let's just be funny. You don't even watch good cartoons. We can't. Do you want to talk about Marvel? Do you want to talk about anything other than telling me how much money you make? Like, do you go to the park? Do you have any outside hobbies? So you don't have a personality, and now it's women's fault that you made your job, your religion, and your politics your personality. And that's not enough.
Yeah. I
I
think
think
also with a lot of young men, what is harming them isn't the advancement of young women, it's online gaming, it's pornography, it's online chat groups that tend to
yes.
radicalize them and make them more angry.
And that entitlement that they have, that woman should have
Hmm.
sex with you. Who taught
Yeah.
you that?
Men are being radical. You know, just looking at it from every side, you don't think some of those same aspects could be radicalizing young women as well in a different scenario or
No,
or
I
over
think
another
both.
spectrum? I'm
I
just
think
asking. I don't know.
no. No, I'm so glad I don't have to date. Because if I heard enough men talk how these men talk about women, I'd be like, I just stay by myself. Like y'all are weird. Like I'm not paying for the first date. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing a coffee date. If I spend this much money on you, you should go home and have sex with me. Where are we at? Like, where are we at? But at the same time, I look on the other side and some of these women, the stuff they say, oh, he should spend this much money on you. He should like you're like casually dating and you think this man should put groceries in your house. What are you talking about? That's not your boyfriend. He's not obligated to take care of you. There's a lot of disillusionment. I don't even know if that's a word, but I made a word up. There y'all go. a lot of a lot of that just like floating around on both sides. But I think I will say this is the one thing where I always feel like for men you do have the opportunity. If you're a good man, a good woman will follow your lead. I'm not telling you to, which I feel is like one of the biggest things is the online, like she said, the gaming community are talking to a whole bunch of men and then they're showing these pictures of women that are like unattainable. And I'm talking about unattainable for us. I'm not looking like this video vixen. I'm not going to look like that. The regular woman does not look like that. But that's what you're telling this man who is the senior mechanic at Dobbs and he makes $80,000 a year. He's got a good job that he should have this model looking woman instead of saying, hey, you should have a woman that likes you and wants to grow with you. The red pill is focused on how women look and sex. But they keep saying they want a good woman, but they don't tell men to look at a woman who's family oriented, who has a degree, who wants to teach children. So that doesn't work on that side. And then the women on the other side are not teaching women to say, oh, he's a provider. And they think that's only monetarily, not saying like, does that man provide you a safe space for your emotions? Does he provide you physical safety, as in he won't harm you? Because you can live in $1 million mansion and drive a Porsche and be getting knocked upside your damn head. Like It's there's no nuance. Nobody is talking about finding a full person. Everything is very surface level, and it's ugly. So I do agree with you, Dion. It's getting ugly on both sides on that. But the good people, they can find each other if they want to. I still believe that.
Yeah, I think with young women, I would say with social media influence, they're more likely to turn against themselves, to feel like they don't look the right way, they don't have all of these things, and to judge themselves with that beauty lens that makes them more depressed, anxious, suicidal. I think it makes young men angry. I think it turns that anger in on women, young women, I would say.
Do you think because of how things change politically and just in the atmosphere the last 10 years with the Me Too moment and different things of that nature, do you think women are more in line if if there's a qualified male that's got the same qualifications as a woman, do you think now women are more in line to get that position over men? Because a lot of men think that.
I don't think that. And I think, like, again, in my state, there's still a big pay gap. So if the woman is likely to get it over a man, they'll also pay her less than they would him.
I will actually give a personal example. I'm not going to say what retail store, because before I was a stockbroker, I worked in retail management. And I had a degree in business. I had 7 years of experience. And the person that they had above me had no degree. He was a white male. He had no degree. He had only 2 years of experience. And they went to move him somewhere else and have me take his spot. And he told me how much he made, and they offered me $5,000 less annually. But he told me, he said, because I know they're going to try to stick you. And he told me as a gesture, like, this is how much money I make. And they offered me more qualified than him to take over $5,000 less. So no, that doesn't happen. I know people want to think that it does, and it could, it's the woman thing, whatever. But it is a person literally standing in front of you. And mind you, I had just went back to work, and I was his assistant because I was like, I'm gonna go back to work for a little while and mess around. Like, I didn't have any points of making it a career, but I was like, oh, I'm kind of bored. I'll go back into this for a minute. And that's what I was offered. So I wanted to give that perspective of, I looked better on paper and helped him build the actual business that we had that was getting him to go somewhere else. And I still was offered less. So that's not real. That's not a thing. No one is finding, if they can dig you down as a woman and or a person of color, they're going to give you less. This whole DEI thing is a ball of crap. It's not happening. And I say this to say DEI was just so you had a fair shake. It was not giving people jobs they were not qualified for, but it was
Right.
for me, as in my position.
Overqualified.
Yeah. Had to work harder for.
Interview this person. You have to interview this person, right? You have to give them the opportunity for this job. That's what DEI was doing. And I'm just showing you it didn't. And then I had to sit up there and argue for my money.
Yeah.
But I also didn't throw him under the bus and say, I know how much he made. I had to go and do statistical information across the region for my position in similar stores, what I should make according to da 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 da. And I just used that, but I wasn't going to throw him under the bus. But I'm saying that to say that's not a thing. It was never a thing to give an unqualified person, of a woman or a person of color, a job. It was that they got the same opportunity to find the job.
I would say a couple jobs ago for my husband, he was recruited to this company for a skill set that he had and asked to create and build a team. So he had authority to hire and stuff like that. And it was an internationally owned company. It is a male dominated field, but it doesn't need to be. I'm hiring people to do desk work and sales work. That is not a gender specific thing. But internationally, I think the company when he started there had 7 women working for it. And he built a team eventually with 20 people and probably 13 women. And a lot of them were single moms. And he's like, I mean, I have to be flexible with them. They're going to come in after they drop their kids off. They have to leave a little bit early, but they'll work later in the evening. They get their job done. And he's like, and they're pretty loyal. They did have to have a bachelor's level. It didn't matter what it was in, but they had to have a bachelor's degree. And he's like, they're grateful for the job. They're grateful for the flexibility. They're really good employees. He's like, the men that I had were entitled, were wanting some of the sales people that the women had. Why don't I get those accounts? Well, because you have these accounts. Single moms were great employees. If you could be flexible, which there was no reason we couldn't be flexible. And he's like, and they did a great job and they cared about their work value. They got a nice pay, they got their benefits, all of that type of stuff. And he's like, and I could be flexible. Now, some of that, I always worked when we were married and had young kids. And so he also had to be flexible with his work schedule because I worked later in the evenings. So he had to get off to go pick up the kids. He started earlier. He got flack for that. If the kids were sick and I had been off last week with them and he had to take this week off, his bosses would say, can't your wife stay home with them?
Oh yeah, because he shouldn't be a real parent. He's just a
Right.
dad.
And he's like, she was last week. It's my turn. And so I think he was like, he understood the flexibility, the need for that. He had to have that. I had to have that. But he was like, I actually preferred them as employees because they weren't looking at the other one and being like, why did they get that big paycheck? And it's like, well, you'll get one too when this sale goes through. It's not
Right.
across the board. There was a commission and he's like managing them. It was a lot less. It was a lot easier to manage the moms than it was the men.
I
Yep.
can see that. I read an article recently. It's a couple of schools that did a study and they interviewed and followed around a number of successful CEOs, equal number of men, equal number of women. And they were stating that we, as far as the genders go, we don't capitalize on what we do good and what we do different. We only look at the things we do differently. Like they found that the women CEOs were much more organized, much more detail oriented than the men. And that's what was their success. And the men CEOs were much more big picture focused, looking down the road. That was keys to their success. And they were asking questions, why don't we utilize those strengths? Not thinking about which one's better or or weaker, but why aren't we combining those strengths to make something bigger and greater? Because we are different. That's what makes us wonderful. That's what makes everything a little bit better is understanding that we're different and we do different things better overall in an
But that's to
umbrella
Jackie's
standpoint.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Jackie's point that she made about her husband, because instead
Yeah.
of seeing that you do this well and make me better, I see competition.
Yes. And that's an issue. A lot of young men feel that they're competing with women, and because of that competition, they don't feel that they understand how to engage them from a romantic standpoint any longer.
Mm-hmm. And I would say too, because what they're witnessing in video games, the chats they're having, and the online porn, they don't know how to approach a female counterpart.
Well, yeah,
And
but
But Jackie, I want you to bring up this because I don't think people understand online porn, the way it hits the brain. Like if people actually did the research, it
it's
hits
a
the brain like
drug.
cocaine.
it
It's
is.
like cocaine. Like
Uh-huh.
it hits all the same spots, and people are like, I'm like, and you become addicted, and then you have these, and men are like, oh, I don't have sex. Well, maybe you had sex with her and you had sex with her like you were having sex with a porn star, and that's not
Right.
real.
Right.
Like
And
we don't like that. Don't
Right.
do that. Like that's for entertainment. That is not
and,
for pleasure.
and I think
Or
the
for
issue is,
education.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
none of those
yeah.
things.
I think the issue is when it's introduced. As a male who's looked at a little bit of online porn in my lifetime and stuff like that, the introduction probably for me was a little bit later because before you could only see like the lines and hear it. It wasn't
Yeah.
freed and you couldn't see it. So I was growing up broke, so I couldn't see it. I would just have to sit there and be like, I think that is a female part right there. And so it was different for me growing up. I had to actually meet and talk and attempt to date and be around real life flesh and blood women
Women.
and be turned down and to deal with those type of things at an earlier age. And when it became very widely open for online porn to be there, I was already in my 20s and I was already married and already had my first child around that time. And so now you're seeing kids get introduced to porn online at 11, 10, 12. And so their sexual thoughts and their turn-ons, and as they get older and become adults, their kinks are being shaped by unrealistic things being put out there.
Yeah.
And I think it does make it very hard for them at that point after watching that for the last decade and then having to deal with that first real flesh and blood girlfriend at 18, 19, 20 because they're dating later now too. They're
Yeah.
not
They don't know how to
you're not
talk to
getting a
each other.
girlfriend at 12 and 13. You're doing it at 17, 18, and 19. I think it makes it very difficult for them to understand like when the woman goes, I don't like that. Who does
Hmm.
that? Like, no, it doesn't work like that. And I think they feel rejected right away. And
Yep.
even if she's not rejecting, even if she's saying, hey, I like you, dude, but we got some talking to do and we got some learning and some things to work out about what I enjoy. And it's not just
Right.
all about you, like the internet has showed them.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you have a grown man on the internet telling people that women orgasming is masculine. So a grown man with a huge platform telling people that women shouldn't orgasm. And I'm like, was just say you can't do it. Just say you don't know how.
You're intimidated by that.
Just say you don't know how to do it, which somebody would teach you if you just was nice enough and you
Hmm.
liked her, she'd show you how. But Dion, I want to jump on your point. The one thing that I think, most afraid of for the future generations, because I have a 16-year-old and I see it a little bit with her, but especially like with my 9-year old and that generation, is that they won't know how to talk to each other because everything is so virtual. Everything is so, like, their lack of, like, kids don't, my kid goes outside and plays. And I have to say, I'm lucky. I live in suburbia. So she has friends that go outside and play with her. So she has a little bit of a different experience than a lot of kids because she found friends that like outside, right? But for the majority of children, their interaction with their friends is all virtual. It's not a one to one. You don't see, even respectfully, guys walk up and say, "Hey, how are you doing? I'd like to get to know you." Because on one end, the men are so scared of rejection, but on the other end, women have been, and this is, I say, every man is not a horrible man, but you can't be like, "I want to talk to you," and have such an explosive, like, "I'm just here with my friends and I'm trying to relax. Why would you try to talk to me?" Well, he tried to talk to you because you're attractive. And the simple thing is, hey, not right now. But then you also have to worry about the men that don't like rejection and then blowing up. So it's so weird right now. It's just weird. They don't know how to take a no, which it could not just be a no, it could be a later. And but they also don't know how to talk to each other in a face to face respectful manner. Like, it's really odd. And
Well, some women I've met, not to interrupt you, would say
no,
that we've never known how to take a no.
Yeah.
Or
see,
when
I
did we?
so I
Overall,
would
I'm
say,
not talking about like your personal, but
yeah,
from an
yeah.
umbrella
For
standpoint.
from umbrella, this is true. Yeah, I mean, I've had that. I've had that. I remember many a time going to the club and, "Hey girl, hey girl, hey girl," like, no, and literally not nothing nasty, like, "No, no, thank you, I got a boyfriend," and the next word go, "Fuck you then." Oh, okay.
Yeah, yes, that's
Like,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
I definitely know.
that was the club era, and I'm like, okay, like, just try to be nice. But I will say, I'm not approached as much because, I'm an older lady now. But when I am, and the funny thing is, at my age, I tell everybody I'm in my 40s. There's either men my age or a little bit older, so it's like 40 to 50, or very young men, like 25, that hit on me, which is so gross. I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all now. Sorry, I don't care what y'all say. If you're young enough to be my kid, don't talk to me. I don't care if it's legal. I know some people like, and that's all. That's a whole different subject I'll get into. But if you're young enough to be my kid, there is absolutely nothing, which means 15 years. I could have been a 15-year-old mom. Get away from me. It's gross. It's gross to me. I don't want to talk to you. We don't have nothing to talk about. For me, this is a personal thing, but I digress. But even them, it's very much like, hi, I think you're nice. Now, the difference is young boys will be like, now can I have your number? Can I get your Instagram? Can
Oh
I get
yeah.
your, like, they want your social media? And I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, why would I give you that? And people are like, oh, it's better than the phone number. And I'm like, so you let a stranger watch you and watch your life, but you don't want to give me your phone number that you can hang up and block.
Hmm.
Very weird to me. Like in my brain, that does not make sense. I don't want you to know where I go to eat and hang out and do all this stuff and I don't know you. No, that's weird. But okay, that's how the young people do it. But older men are still very respectful. And usually when I say I'm married, I get a lot of your husband's a very lucky man, but it's a very respectful interaction now. It's like, oh, well, they'll tell me I'm beautiful. Somebody ask about what I do for work, something will happen. And I'm like, oh, what do you do? Have a small conversation. And they'll be like, oh, I'd love to get to know you more. And I'm like, you're so polite and I appreciate you, but I'm a very married woman. And they'd be like, well, thank you for the conversation. Your husband's lucky. And we just go about our business. Young men are very similar for my personal experience. But when I was younger, it definitely was not that. So I do think the age that I am now, the approach is different. But a young woman, a no was never, it was always like, oh God, do I need to take my shoe off and get ready?
You're right. I think it's I can empathize with it being somewhat scary because we're fighting traditional gender roles that are still out there. So, as you said earlier, a person has a good job. A person has a good job, depending on what state, that could be 50, $60,000, good steady income. 35, 42 years ago, 40 years ago, the percentage of women who were making what they make now, even if it's less, was way different. Percentage of women who were educated and certified was way different. So, as a man coming out of the 70s, 60s, 50s, even 80s, I could always rely on me being sexy no matter how much weight I gain, no matter if I end up getting like the roof off, but only the sides, all those different things that could be it. No matter if I'm just not that good looking of a person, that happens. I mean, I don't think you should date just based on that, but even if that was the standpoint, we could always rely on that I was the breadwinner. I bring home the bacon. I can bring home all those things, and it changes. And I think a lot of men get worried when that's not the case no more. Like, where do I stand when I can't guarantee that I'm the breadwinner? My space in life is to provide for my family, provide for my wife, provide for my child, and that space is no longer how it is. It's just not. People want to go back to it, but it's not.
Hmm.
Overall, we provide. And so because we provide, that means Vela or Jackie has a say so in what we're providing. So before I tell you, listen, I'm from, let's say I'm from the Midwest like Vela, and I'm a steak and potatoes guy. So we need different options of that coming home on the regular. I make the money, I'm bringing it in, and you're fine with it. Well, that's not how it goes no more. I might be a steak and potato guy. You guys might be garden greens or this, that, and y'all have say so now. And I don't know how I feel about that. Also, you guys are, they're finding out that y'all weirdly smart. I can't just turn on the TV and be like, eh, I don't like that guy. Y'all put books down and be like, what? Huh, I like him. Because I feel that such. You're like, when did you learn how to talk? What is happening here? What is happening to my world? You have opinions? This is this is
And they're
terrible.
and I've
Why
been
don't you
told
go back
all
to being
life that
pretty?
you're
You're so
irrational
pretty.
and you're making rash thought
Yes.
thoughts and oh
Yes.
no.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
over exaggeration, but there are pieces of that that is there. Where do I stand in the world when I'm not your hero no more? I'm not the one that is providing, and it's a us thing, and we're sharing the reins. And what does that look like? And do I want to share the reins?
Hmm.
Especially since, you're not my ideal woman anyway, because the porn sites that I watch, y'all stay perfect sized and you never get no smile lines or wrinkles and stuff like that.
Oh, and
And
you snap back after you give me a child
yes,
after
Stretch
your
marks.
body.
Yep.
yes, yes, yes. And you're forever sexy at all times. And I'm looking at you with, just waking up and you look crazy right now. And so I don't know if I want to do this. And what does that mean to our society moving on to be successful and still create these foundations of a loving
Hmm.
family and have people stick into that family? What does that change? Some people say it's religious. It's changed so much in our walk away from overall the church that has created this overall aspect. Some say it's because of competition, as we've been talking about, but and it could be all of them. But there are definitely, you can see it just because the trend show it. It shows that we're getting married less and we're having even less babies, but we're getting married less. Early 20s used to be Mayday time for a lot of young people. That's when you got
Hmm.
your first marriage out the way. A lot of people have been married twice. Like
Yep.
I was married at 20. And it happened. You're way too young and you find out you don't like each other too much after about good 4 or 5 years and you move on. But that's not happening no longer.
Right.
Yep. I
And
mean,
what does that mean for us?
I mean, I
it means
think,
we need to
again,
do better. Go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say, taking it back to a political stance, if Project 2025 is allowed to be rolled out, which a lot of it has already taken effect,
Girl.
we're going back to that because women can't leave their marriage.
Yep.
There's
Oh
not a
yeah.
no fault divorce. They can't have jobs, right? A lot of the professions, what they think are female dominated professions, they're classifying them as not a professional license.
Nursing.
And so you cannot, yeah, nursing. So you
Teaching
cannot get student loans to go to college and
to better
then have a
yourself.
job and have a career, right? And so again, then we would have more people married and more children, whether they want to or not, whether they like each other or not, whether it's healthy for kids to grow up with those parents in the same marriage or not. Or we look forward and men have to start recognizing that there has to be more to me than providing financially and then being self focused and wanting me time. I am going to have to parent my kids. I am going to have to help out around the house because more than likely my spouse also works. And also my kids benefit and I benefit from being a father and them having a father. And so I have to show up and be more of a partner, not just a provider. I'm also going to have emotions that I need to talk about. And I'm going to have to navigate when she has emotions and know how to show up for her.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Like that's I just want to say Jackie hit all the points. We have to start with our little boys and show them that having a full spectrum of emotions is okay. One of the worst things we did is teach boys that anger is the only acceptable emotion.
Mm-hmm.
They can't
Anger
be
and then
sad.
eventually sexual desire, right?
Right, right. That's all they get. They don't get to be sad. They don't get to be extremely happy. You know what I mean? Like we've cut off boys, but I've seen things. I always even with all this, I always try to find the positivity. And when I see little boys holding baby dolls, and there was this woman, she wrote a blog about this older woman her son had a baby doll in his arms, and he was about to buy this doll. And this older woman was like, "Don't you want a truck?" This woman she did not know in the Target, like, "Don't you want a truck? Don't you want?" He was like, "No, I want a doll." And she said, "You're not a girl." And the little boy said, "No, I'm not a girl. I'm a dad." And that's what he told this woman because that's what he had seen in his house. His father held babies. His father was an engaged father. And she said, in that moment, I knew how good of a husband I had because my son knew he was not imitating anyone else except what he had seen in his home, right? So I give that story to say that's what we need to give to little boys. And we can, it's all this other stuff, all this Project 25 stuff. That's all like, we're going to force it and make it instead of, as we do in America, we're going to avoid the root issue. We're just going to make it, we're going to beat it into this hole, we're going to force it instead of saying, hey, we just need to make little boys feel safe with emotions, make mental health more accessible. And hey, if we work on communication, it'd be great. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the simplest form is teaching boys. And then they're teenagers, they're not so angry. And they know how to say, hey, my feelings are hurt, and teaching them that it's okay to hug. Like in European nations and things like that, men hug each other. Like it is okay to have non-sexual affection. Like it is so unnormalized here that if they're not fighting, the boys don't like each other. Like you can't be there for your friend. If a boy tells them, like, I'm sad, my grandmother died, it's an automatic joke. It can't be, let's have a serious conversation about your grandmother dying. I know how I felt when my grandmother died. That hurt. They're not allowed that space. So I just am just really just piggybacking on what Jackie said. If we want to fix it, we fix our little boys and we give
Mm-hmm.
them that emotional space also for and that's specifically boys in general. And then for the Black community, especially, is we stop adultifying inside and internally and externally, stop adultifying our children in general. Like stop making little 5-year-old Black boys like they're these huge giants. Like 9-year-old Black boys are not teenagers. They're not young men. They're children. So if we as a society would stop those things, our kids would be better off. But adults don't want to fix themselves because that's too much work.
I smiled when you said the last part because I was like, oh, God. Because I know I'm guilty of that. I'm like, look, boy, when I was 10, I was doing all this short order cook, bring home money, you know, and they're looking at you with peepers. So I think one of the things we have to do off what you're saying is being accountable, thinking about the things that we actually do. Because I'm sure all of us make certain mistakes that we've spoken about. And one of the big issues is we don't like being accountable. I mean, because what we champion in our society isn't about accountability. I was
Now,
reading and it said young women, and that's probably why you guys got a finger on the button, they focus on issues like sexual harassment and mental health. While young men, we focus on competition, bravery, and honor.
Mm.
And I think that creates a huge separation on what young women are thinking about and what we're thinking about. We're thinking about winning. You know, we sit there and we watch the same things over there. You know, let me tell you something. If you sold me a romantic, loving, deep story on television, that would not make me cry. I could watch it. Like, what's the show that came out years ago? Ordinary People or something deep and heartfelt. I could watch it and I could feel something, but I ain't gonna lie to you here. If you show me a movie where one man is standing against everybody else on a last stand, your boy will be blubbering. I'm like, oh! Like, because of what we've been trained. And you know, you sit there with a friend or a loved one, a woman, and she's looking at you like, yeah, really, he should have ran and lived another day to be strategic. And I'm like, you wouldn't understand.
you're absolutely right because we're trying to live. Like, why didn't you just, you know? So the great point I want to you just made me think of something. So I don't think anyone talks about very successful men, like astoundingly successful men across the board. Like, I think it's like 90% of them will tell you that they got more successful when they started listening to their wives.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They would come home with a business idea and then she'd be like, blah, 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 blah. Did you think about, and they all said, our wives think about things that we don't think about. and they ask questions that we don't see. And when I started talking to my wife, it gave me a better picture. And I was like, hey, did we look at this, this, and this, and this? And
Hmm.
all the other men in the room are like, no. And they're like, hey, we need to look at those. And like every successful man was like, when I started consulting, look, consulting my wife for business strategy and things that I was doing, I became better. I got better. Like, these things, like I grew as a person. So I'm saying that to say it's also that aspect of you have to have the confidence. I was talking to a couple the other day and they're going through some problems. And he was like, I just want her to listen to me. And she was like, well, I had something to say. And he's like, well, I'm the man, da 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 da. And I looked him dead in his face and I said, so you married a dummy? And he was like, well, no. I said, I heard you tell me she's smart. And to me, it seems like you'd be very picky about who you chose as a partner to have children with, that you would pick an intelligent woman. He said, yes. I said, okay, so she's intelligent. You think she's smart. So why, when she gives you information, do you not value her opinion? Why does it not hold weight with you? Why is your idea of how things should go so important that you don't take a step back and be like, let me see if she has a point?
It doesn't matter if she's right. It's about the style of it. It's never mattered if you're right. It's about how it's done. These people know from going back earlier what we were talking about. People know that Trump is a straight bully, but they like to see America act on their strength. And it's the same way in these smaller conversations between
Fake confidence and
male and
bravado. We got
females
that.
and husband and wives and boyfriends and just relationships overall. It's not about whether you're right. If Jackie tells me something and she's right, oh, okay. But like if she comes around and says, Dion, I was thinking about what you're saying and you're exactly right. I'm like, you see? Man, you're brilliant. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna tell people to look into your podcast because you're a smart woman. Okay? I knew it. I knew it. It's not about her being right. It's not about you being right, Bella. It's about doing it in a certain way. It's
Convincing you that
about
it's your idea
yeah,
and
well,
not
not
her
even about
intelligence.
convincing somebody, but it's got to be a little more aggression. We respect aggression. It's got to
Not
be a
all
little bit
men.
more.
No, no, no. That's a
Yeah, I
No,
specific
was
type
no,
gonna
of man.
say
no, not
that's
toward me. Not toward me. No, no, not toward me, but toward
No, but
the
even that's a
ideas.
certain type of man. That's a
Oh
certain
yeah,
type of
that's
man
true.
because my husband is the same way as you. My husband likes, when I am soft with my husband, he likes that romantically, right? But when it comes down to business, if I'm like, hey, baby, I don't think da 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 da, he will brush that little thought I have. But when I'm like, hey, you didn't think about this, the A, B, and C, and it's going to end up E, F, and G. And I'm going to tell you this one time, and however it rolls, it rolls. And I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. And I'll tell him, you're a grown man, you made the decision. And so I walk away, and when it comes back and it doesn't work, I'm like, you see, I'm never, and all I say is, I'm never gonna tell you anything to hurt our family or hurt you. I need you to listen to me a little bit more. And that's when my husband started. I just started like throwing ideas out there, and when they didn't work, I'm not gonna berate my husband. Some women do that. That never works. It's just a clear, I got your back, and I want us both to do well. So when you ask me a question, baby, understand I'm thinking of it from a different perspective. But we had that, like, my husband's East Coast, I'm Midwest. He's a man, I'm a woman. He had a single mom, two-parent home. Like, we have very differing how we grew up. So I'm like, my perspective, you should value it because it is completely different. So I'm going to see it completely different. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's different. And the same thing could be said from him to me. But it rolls back to what you said earlier is if it's different than me, it scares me. And I don't want to be wrong. People are so scared about being wrong then that they could learn that they shut off so much potential. But that's what you said earlier. So
By listening, that means you're right, and it's competition.
yeah.
So it's too many of us competing with each other,
hmm
and maybe it's just more of on the man side. I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit of both at times, but it's too much of us competing with each other. And people think competition like races or basketball or football or soccer. No, competition is in ideas and thoughts
Mhm.
in the ways that we move a relationship also. You know, some of us want our relationship to look like this. Your thoughts about how the relationship should be looking like is this. And then my thoughts of how the relationship would look like is this. And compromise sounds like and feels like giving up. And from a man's side, it sounds like you're becoming more pussified.
Yeah, you're
Like
you're weak.
that's a bad word. Like a
Yep.
pussy is weak at all.
Yep.
But but in terms of that, it feels like that, and it feels like that I'm giving a piece of my manhood away by allowing you to have too much input on the way this relationship is going to go.
Yeah.
It
No,
weakens me to a certain extent.
I love that perspective because I feel like that just speaks to the fact that the way that we see strength is very shallow, right? Because you talked about the strength and protection, and you were talking about if a man's not a provider. Like I said earlier, I think provider has been made so financial that a man doesn't understand that you can provide all the financials, but if you provide a hellscape environment in your house, you're not providing crap, right, like you're a provider of trash, because yeah, all the bills are paid, but your kids run to their rooms and they don't want to be around you, so you provided a horrible environment. Providing does not stop at a dollar. So even if your wife makes more money, maybe you're better with money than her, right? She makes more money, but you're the better budgeter, right? She makes more money. And you know what? You might be a stay at home dad. If you have the right woman, she's not going to emasculate you. Because I tell you what, just like the right man loves that he comes home to a cooked meal and appreciates his wife and does not belittle her accomplishments. My house is clean, my kids are safe, and a smart man does not make his wife small. A smart woman would not make her husband small because you're both providing and you're both taking care of each other. It just looks different. Like people people have really had it misconstrued. And like I said, it's a patriarchal thing. Like you're the only time that's how that works. But as Jackie said, her husband, no, I'm just like Jackie. When my husband, Jackie, have you had friends like when you're like, oh, I'm leaving the kids with their husband, and they look at you like, what are the kids gonna do? And I'm like, they're gonna live. What you mean they got a
Right, right.
daddy? Like, what? Oh, did you leave him this, this, and this? No, girl, I packed my bag and I left. He's a
Hmm.
dad, like
Yeah.
not a half-ass one, like a real one. What you
Yes.
mean?
And will he do it different than me? Yes, he will.
Yes, he
But
will. But will
it's
they
going to
survive?
be equally competent or equally good, right? Like,
Right. And are they gonna have a great time with their dad?
yep.
Yes,
Will they eat different meals than I would ever want to eat? Yep, they will.
absolutely,
Do you have
absolutely.
do you have any suggestions? And I agree with almost everything you said about we could talk about the problem, but like how do we bring it? How does this new generation come back together? Because I'm not so much conservative, but I do think that we do well when families are doing well rather than
Hmm.
singular. And I could be wrong on
Yeah.
that, but just financially, how our the build of our country, everything is when the family, whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
is strong and successful. And so since that gap is widening, what are suggestions to bring that thing back together?
I think a lot of what we've been talking about is how we navigate connection and that we're not doing it well, whether that's in relationships, whether that's between genders. And I think there's a lot of value that comes from having male friends. And I think the
Yes.
males that I am friends with benefit from being friends with me, even if there's not romance, or I sometimes will say, you should have friends that are attractive to you. I'm not just
Mm-hmm.
talking about physical appearance. They can be intellectually attractive. They can be a lot of different ways where we start to expand on what attractiveness is and see that women have things to offer their male friends. And likewise, I have benefited a lot from having male friendships
Yes.
and what they offer me compared to my female friends. And so again, I just think it's getting past a lot of those barriers, even barriers that say men and women can't be friends.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. Do we have to navigate some issues so that we're respectful of boundaries and we're not making a spouse uncomfortable with the friendship? Yes, we do. Can we do that? We should be able to do that as adults.
Yes.
And so, again, I just think whether that's seeing people as different from us and not knowing how to find connection there or trusting that we can have connection, and it exacerbates our insecurities or our fears, that's what comes out and it's causing problems. But I'm interested in your guys' thoughts.
I think you made a great point. Like that's a great starting point. I think I will go ahead and pick it. I think my male friendships have grown me in ways. And I always tell people like my male friendships held my marriage together. When I could get the perspective of a man when me and my husband were having issues and they could walk me through it in a way that was also very safe to me. And then having men that could talk to my husband about me in a way that he could understand. Now, everybody will tell you not to have everybody in your business, which I totally agree, but you have to also discern that there are people that want the best for you that can be in your business versus messy
Mm-hmm.
people. They're very different groups of people, right? But those male friends have grown me as a woman in so many ways and just perspective and making me a better wife. And like I said, and I totally have them for helping save my marriage. For for the future, I honestly I feel like between the millennials and generation, I guess whoever is with the zennials are under us, the zennial millennials and generation X, I guess that's under us, right? Or those that Y?
I think I'm Gen X. I'm right on the last year of Gen X.
Okay, so I'm like they call me a
Millennial,
zennial.
you're millennial, or yeah, you're something
Yeah,
like
I'm
that.
right
So
in there.
you're
So,
millennial.
and then the people after us, I think I'm not into the generations and the generation after us. I think we need to take some perspective and take some time and have some I think to my perspective is if you're still raising kids, having better, honest conversations, being like real transparent conversations with your kids and being okay with saying you messed up because like you said, no one likes accountability. But if you start modeling accountability, it's a lot easier for your kids to be accountable when you're not that parent that's like I'm always right, even when you're proved wrong. Like I don't say I'm sorry because we all experienced that, especially if you was an '80s kid. Your parents was like, I don't give a shit. You can put all
Mm-hmm.
the evidence in front of my face, like we're experiencing right now. I'm still not telling you I'm sorry, and that's why we're in this crap hole we're in now because that
Mm-hmm.
was perpetuated. So you have to be able to change those mindsets to sit your kids down. You're like, you know what? I did this wrong. And I want to apologize to you. I could have handled this differently. Da 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 da. And even when they're little, start apologizing, talking to them and explaining things to them because critical thinking, in my opinion, is what's missing. Make sure your kids read. Make sure your kids
Mm-hmm.
read a variety of books. Like in my house, I always make sure there are books from several cultures about different things. And my family is mixed, so it might be easier for me because my both of my kids run around. My family is all the colors, all the colors. Like that's their claim to fame. So we just make sure that we celebrate all the cultures. Like my kids know about Hanukkah, and my kids also know about Kwanzaa, and my kids know about Ramadan because I want them to know to respect other people and that
Mm-hmm.
other cultures can teach them things that are beautiful. So I just feel like our job is to model that you want to be accountable, and that is across the board. I want to be accountable and making sure that you and respect other people. I want to be accountable that when I different information is presented to me that I change my mind. I want to be held accountable that when I'm wrong I tell you I'm sorry. So my biggest thing I'm going to say, my full takeaway is to be accountable and to have better conversations and open conversations with children and teenagers so that we are modeling the behavior that we need for them in the future.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Both of y'all had great answers. Mine's kind of go back to what you both started with, because I always simplify everything, so it's super simple for me and my ideas. And I think it's all of the things that both of y'all said. But for me, simply normalize us having great friendships with the opposite gender. I mean, it's hard to hate somebody once you've been a great friend with them. Because I think a lot of straight men, and sometimes there's some straight women, we truly, we might be sexually attracted to you, but we're not We don't
We don't
like
like you.
you. We don't like women. We like doing things to you, but we don't like women. And I think it's different when you've spent time and that is your actual friend from a young age, like from
Mhm.
toddler on. 'Cause we tend to romanticize everything. I mean, you might have done it, you might have not, but when you have a friend and they're in second grade and they're like, "This is my friend Jackie," they're like, "Oh, you got you a little girlfriend." And they look
Hmm.
at you, they're like, "Nah, that's
My
my
friend,
friend." They're like, "Oh, stop it, boy. It's all right to like them, stuff like that." And if you listen to them, they're like, "Nah, we're actually just me and Bella are just actually friends." They're like, "Oh, what's
friends.
wrong, boy?" That's when we all us men have to
Right.
get together and talk. Might be something wrong with the boy. We have to take him to football games, stuff like that. He said that he just wants to be friends with Bella. Confused.
They
Right.
both like Legos. And how
Yeah.
could they both just like Legos?
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we need to find a way to normalize it being okay for the genders to be friends because at that point, like you said, Jackie, and you touched on it too, Bella, is we get better understanding of each other. We have those conversations. We talk about the taboo things that you're not supposed to talk about with each other. You start finding out that, oh, so I mean, I've been on the phone with plenty of friends that are just straight, just friendship with women. And once a woman becomes a friend with you and there's nothing between you or anything like that, TMI, we hear it all. We find out real quick. I'd be like, oh, they'd be like, that's horrible. Any man that's doing that move is terrible. And I'm like, that was my go-to. Oh, you start learning how to
Yep.
treat each other much better when you're actually friends and
Hmm.
have those relationships where you're friends, where you can discuss things. You start learning from a woman's standpoint what men feel weird about or don't like or
Yep.
different things. And we laugh about it and we get comfortable having conversations. And to me, once you get into the romantic relationships and the sexual relationship, when you have those built-in relationships, it colors how you act. I know that I should listen to when a woman says no because my mom, my aunts, my sisters, my women friends have talked to me, and I know that it's never 99% of the time, it's never the weird person in the dark that are forcing themselves on a woman. It's people that they respect, people that they like, people that they love, like me, who felt like that since I've already slept with you before, then we all
You get
good.
ready to
Like,
go
man, you just
again.
tripping.
Hmm.
You just having a headache. Let's just do what we always do. And I understood that, damn, like he did what? So many friends who went through that experience, and they're like, yeah. And I said, well, you had sex with them before, and they're like, it doesn't matter, Dion. So having those conversations, you think would just be built in, but sometimes it's not. Listening to those conversations, having those relationships, it helps each other know what's the right way and the wrong way to deal with it. And I think we really need to get comfortable with those type of relationships that are just platonic, that are
Hmm.
just friendships that you can learn from and grow from. And I think it's very with things like Facebook and social media and different stuff like that. I feel like we're in totally different chats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The women is for the women, the men chats and the men chats, and then like you just hear little things. You don't even know what it mean. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like I'm lucky enough, I have daughters, so I get to know what clock that T means. I get to I get to
Hmm.
know like, different things. I get to
Oh
learn different
God.
that I wouldn't know. I get to learn everything from what's the more popular products for women to different things because all those color what y'all enjoying, what that means to that space. I don't think a lot of men get a chance to understand that because what we're talking about, y'all don't really care about most of the time. Like what our regular goofy stuff that we, man, even how y'all joke and laugh and what y'all find hilarious. Like my friends, when they send me things that are funny, I'm like, hmm, that are from the opposite gender compared to like when my male friends send me stuff, I'd be like, yeah, now that's hilarious. So what we think that's funny and entertaining, having those differences colors the relationships that we have. And I think if we get used to in a young age of us interacting and being friends and spending in the night and having fun and hanging out and stuff like that, I think it's much harder to be an a-hole to people that you empathize with and understand.
But I
Yeah.
think you missed a point of the one thing it could do, not that you missed it, or you're
Mhm.
actually, you talking made me think of it. It would increase safety so much.
I think so.
I
Like
think
the
so.
safety that you have, because not only do I understand personally what women like, men that don't have those relationships, if they're around a man that's like, hey, don't do that, dog. Like that's horrible. Girls don't like that. Like, or
Mm-hmm.
calling somebody out that says something offensive. Men holding other men accountable will always do more than anything else.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
care what anyone says. So when you have that man who has this homegirl that he loves so much, and he knows somebody did something to her, and he hears one of his friends say something similar, and he's like, hey, no, we don't do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
those, it could really keep a lot of men safer and women safer, because then men are going to know, even if she says no and I'm thinking in my head, oh, we've had sex before, even if he doesn't have like quote unquote the intent to assault, he knows like, oh shoot, like this could be seen as assault and I shouldn't do it. Like it's not a joke, she's not playing hard to get, I should stop. So it also keeps men safe from
Mm-hmm.
going to jail or being accused, because they're also safe, because just those relationships could cause so much more safety for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Those relationships, those cross relationships, just make a person better. I always tell anybody, my son's so much of a better man than I am, and I'm so happy about it. But like my son had a very, very extremely close relationship with his grandma. Still does. She's still here, so she hadn't passed. He loves being his grandma. He can lay in bed and talk to her all the time. I thought that was gonna be a problem. Young me was like, a little bit close to the old lady. Uh, Oh, like even if he had been, he's straight, and it doesn't matter. If he had been, that would have been fine too. Now that I'm more mature about my thought, but we think that, and then like when he got to college, like his first roommates, both were girls. So I'm like, you sleeping with him? You messing with him? Like,
And he's
what's
like,
up? Like,
no, dad.
like this. And he's like, nah, nope,
That would
I'm not.
complicate things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, if I had two women roommates when I was in college. Because how I grew up and my thoughts, even when you tell yourself, hey, I know better, I read, it's different.
Yep.
And so, I just think we have to do better with cultivating and growing these relationships between the genders. I just think it would just do so much better. And of course, it would be some negatives out of it. Some people are just
Yeah.
sociopaths, and they use that knowledge to manipulate and just do worse things. But I'm talking about as an overall
As
standpoint.
a
I just think
whole.
it would be, as a whole, it would just do us better if we actually liked each other. Because I
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
met women who were straight that didn't like men,
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, there's nothing ever that even a good man could do, because you're not going to be anything but insert hot button word,
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic,
Yep.
this, this, or this. And I've asked him, do you like men though? And she was honest, like maybe not. And I'm like, that's
Yep.
what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
it's
mean,
also
you
probably her
you want
experiences.
men,
Like,
but
yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, yeah, what the experiences color that. I'm not
because
saying that
that's
he doesn't
that's
have
a
a reason, but
no,
it's
no, no.
just,
I know you weren't, because I just
yeah.
Yeah.
I just I'm giving a shout out because my best friend, who's a guy, is like your son. We've been best friends since our freshman year of high school. So we're running on almost
All the
25
time.
years of friendship, right? Y'all can see my age now. So he is uncle to my kids, right? His wife and I have each other's phone numbers. He has my husband's phone numbers. He was in my wedding on my side. Okay. Because that's just who I am. I'm like, no, he's not on my husband's side. That's my friend. Right. And there were in our family, and my husband had a woman on his side. Now, mind you, this is unseen to people. They're like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh no, that's my best friend. That's her best friend. Right. And we're very like, this is what it is. Now, his best friend and I go out and we hang out. She's one of my favorite people. And people have found it in marriage that we still have opposite gendered friends that we hang out with without our spouse and we talk to. They think it is so strange, right? And they think it's so weird that we have these relationships. But I'm like, but that's because you can't see past, if I'm not sleeping with them, why would I want to talk to a man or a woman of the opposite? I said, and that's so sad. And I say that in the perspective of my best friend. My oldest child is not my husband's biologically, but that is his baby and he has adopted her and it is the most wonderful thing. But when I was pregnant, I was very single and I was just like, one night I called my best guy friend and was like, I just need to be held because I'm just going through it in this pregnancy and I just need you. Came over, slept in the bed with me, rubbed my belly all night, rubbed my feet, rubbed my belly, kissed her, told her how excited he was that she was coming into this world and all those things, kissed me on my forehead in the morning and left. And the perspective of that's what I needed. I needed that masculine energy. I needed to feel safe, but then I had to find the person that I felt most safe with, right? And he was there for me. His wife knows that story. My husband knows that story. And nobody is weird. And probably somebody listening to this story right now in this podcast going, I can't believe they slept in the bed together. She
They
must be
definitely
lying.
say about.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
gotta
again, I
be.
mean, you knew when you called him, that's what he was going to do. That's all that he was going to
That's
do.
all.
He was
I
going to do
knew.
what you asked him to do, and it wasn't going to be weird. And there was no more to it.
And people
And it
think
shouldn't
I'm
be.
joking.
And
My
honestly,
oldest,
it shouldn't be a celebration because that's
that's what
what should have been done because that's the kind of relationship that y'all have.
we
But
have.
because it's so rare, it's a celebratory kind of story.
But it should. And then the crazy thing is people think I'm joking. My daughter, to this day, that is one of her most favorite people. And I'm like, if y'all don't think she felt all of that. Even when we were apart, he like put the phone on your stomach. Hey, baby, I can't wait to like that. He's been uncle since I was pregnant. Like that was his job. And my daughter, I'm like, that's other than my actual brother, that's the first male voices that she knew. And she clings to both of them. Like she's very much a daddy's girl now, but those two uncles are, you can't replace them in her eyes. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, it should not be something that is rare. It can be normal. But he grew up in a family full of women, taught to keep them safe, taught to value them. A period or a cycle was nothing weird to him. Like none of these things were like a conversation that you couldn't have with him because he was like, I've been around women my whole life. And he valued women. He valued what they brought. I'm saying that to tell people, if you teach a little boy to see women more than a sexual object, he'll be fine. And he'll have these women around him that love him because I'll do anything for my best friend. He is one of the most important, like literally, if they were like, he needs a kidney, I'm like, well, what's up? Like, let's go. Because that's just who he is to me. But you can have these relationships with people that are the opposite gender, but you do have to value, and you have to value men. I value what he brings to me, the counsel he brings to me, the safety he brings to me. I always say I am lucky, and I know I am lucky because I am not the 1 in 4 of women. I have been around safe men my entire life. All of my uncles, my granddads, the extra men around me. So I know how privileged I am as a woman to be able to say I don't know what that's like. And I thank God I do not know. But I say that to tell women there are safe men. There are wonderful men. Now there are creeps, and I've seen them. But the best thing about being around safe men is creeps don't get around safe men. They don't have it.
Right.
You bring a creep, a guy who's like my best friend, a dude accused of sexual assault, Hey, you can't come around here, weirdo. And if you can't stay around too long, it's going to be a physical altercation. Like, good men don't stand for creepy men. And that's
Well, and
why,
usually creepy men are intimidated by good men.
oh yeah.
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 I was about to say, usually you don't even have to get to that point because
Yeah.
they
They're
can
not going to hang
feel
out.
it. They're not going to
Mhm.
Yep.
hang out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's most time men with bad intentions aren't going to hang out with the men with good intentions.
Yeah. You know, they put
Yeah.
those feelers out to see how many other creeps are in the room, and then the men turn around and look at them like, what? What
Yeah.
kind of weird shit you talking? And then it's,
Hmm.
oh, I guess I shouldn't hang around those guys anymore. You probably shouldn't because they think you're a weirdo.
Yeah. So to bring it together, as we've talked about what's happening in our country and politically, politics, I mean, I do believe when people will say, oh, I don't like politics, I'm like, politics at its essence is how we decide to live together in large groups. You can't not care about politics. It's how your garbage gets picked up, it's how your street gets repaired or plowed. It is in our life. I get when it gets big and crazy, people are like, I don't want to pay attention to that. But I'm like, no, you have a voice in that. But I think sometimes what we see with politics is a symptom. And underneath that symptom, or how we address that symptom when we've talked about the core issue, is how do we care for each other? Do you care when somebody else is suffering? Do you care? Because if you don't, we need to look at our humanity. And why have we gotten desensitized? Can we not have empathy or compassion or see that and say, that's not right? And I want my tax dollars to do something about that.
What do you view as community? Is the
Yeah,
community only people that look like you, or is community something else?
right.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, I think that brings it all up. It connects it. Even when we started speaking about the widening gender gap, a lot of that was politics.
Mm-hmm.
Politics. It's all politics. Everything
Politics.
is, but it's also, like she
But it
said,
makes sense though.
it's
It
the
makes
other.
sense. Not to interrupt you, Villa. It makes sense because those politics are going to have a major effect on your livelihood and how you guys live in this country. Politics could mean you going to jail or something of that nature for choosing to get an abortion, whether
Or
you're
having a
with that or
miscarriage
against
and
it,
not
or
being able
having a
to prove that.
miscarriage. Yeah, exactly. Things of that nature, getting sick, life and death
Mm-hmm.
because of that situation, because you know that the baby's not going to come to term already, and they've told you you need to get abortion. So
Yeah.
yeah, politics matter. Or you meet somebody and you're a person of color, and what their politics are speaking of is going to directly affect the people that look like you and the people that you love that's in your life. All those things have an aspect in it, and yeah, it's going to continue. I think I don't see that part of the gender issue changing as far as like the overall like politics being a great divider to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
That's I say. All of it is othering. When we look at it, the
Mm-hmm.
politics is othering other cultures, other genders, other jobs, other faith, and then I'm gonna pit you against each other, which is kind of brings back to what you said, Dion. I'm gonna apply it not just to having. I'm sorry, Jackie said it. Not just to having quality friendships with the opposite sex, but having quality friendships with people who have different backgrounds, people from different ethnicities, exposing yourself to differences. Because once you expose yourself to differences, you'll realize how much more you have alike.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Yes.
sit up there and you other, it's like, oh, they don't do that. Like, it's so much more othering that happens. I always liken it to food. And it's so funny because I talk about Mexican food and soul food are supposed to be so different, but they're really not. They're both very heavily dependent on spice.
Mm.
And Mexican heritage used every part of every animal. So does soul food. You know, you put tripe in a soup, African Americans fry tripe and put it on a sandwich. Like, it's a very, the cultures, you might use different
It's
spices, but the main ingredients really don't change except for the region you were in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I just go across the board like that. If you break them down and you look at the ingredients, it's so many more similarities. Masa is nothing but wet cornbread. Like y'all just gotta stop. Like it's all the same. It's so many similarities, but you sat up here and you focused on what was different, and you focused on what was different when there are so many things that are the same. So you make a gordita shell, we make fried cornbread, baby. They are like, hey, they might not even be cousins. They like brother and sister. They're
Mm-hmm.
real closely related, like in how they are made and what components make them, but they're just from two different cultures. But if we sat down and actually enjoyed each other and wanted to learn, that's where I love your both your points, because that brings it all together. We don't have to otherize each other. Let's create a community of how can you make me better, just like men and women. How can you make me better? What can I
Mm-hmm.
learn from you? What can I learn from other cultures? And yeah, like that's what I've gotten for this conversation, that we can learn so much more from each other. And we got to stop letting the powers that be otherize us and limit our growth.
Yeah. Well, thank you both of you for your time, for your thoughts, for your comments, everything that you guys shared. I really appreciate this conversation. And I think it models how we care, how we show up, and how we have conversations from different areas. You're Midwest, Dion, you're Texas, I'm the West. And yet we had a lot to say that applied to all of us. I appreciate that.
And I just appreciate the mental health aspect. That was amazing. So thank you, and
Mm,
sharing everything that you did and your perspective. I appreciate that.
yeah.
Dion, your perspective as a man and all of that, and a father, greatly appreciated. And
Yeah.
this was a very well-rounded conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I do too. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye,
You guys
guys.
have a
Okay. We'll
great
see you.
day.
You
Thank you.
too. Bye bye.